Before you get into this episode, I just want to preface that Mike and I do talk about certain plot twists and moments from Tenet, which may be annoying to you if you haven't seen the movie already. So I'd suggest either watching the movie, then listening to us, or listen to us, listener discretion advised, because guess what? We talk about all the nasty bits.
Yeah, so this is an official spoiler warning.
Yeah. If you don't want to know about what the sunscreen is all about in the movie, and you don't know what that means yet, don't listen. Watch the movie, or listen and just don't be mad at us. Don't send us hate emails.
No, please don't. Please don't. Send us nice emails.
Yeah, really positive emails.
Send us an email that says, "Hey, you guys are handsome."
Yeah, don't know what you look like, but you're handsome.
From JustinDeCane@gmail.com.
This is From Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same.
I pitched that we edit this episode as a palindrome, not unlike Tenet.
That's right.
So that it plays in reverse at the very end once it finishes.
So it's actually 3 hours long?
Yeah, so it's a 3-hour long episode.
I think that's funny.
Okay, well, maybe we'll do it then.
But also, should we put in No, I think that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, well, we'll see how long the episode is and we can do it.
Okay, but also, would the audio be in reverse, or would it just...
Yeah, everything is just played backwards.
Like, watch the...
Yeah, it just tests the patience of the canine.
You know what? Fuck it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to From Justin to Kane. We've got a doozy of an episode for you, haven't we, Mike?
The rare doozy.
The rare doozy. This is the rarest of doozies. This week's episode, the two films we are focusing on are 2020's Tenet and 1960-something's It's a Hard Day's Night. What year was it released, Mike?
1964, and it's called A Hard Day's Night. The song is called A Hard Day's Night. They just say it's a hard day's night in the film.
A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
The Beatles song, also the title of 1964's A Hard Day's Night, the film we're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is the good film? Which is the bad film, Mike?
The good film is A Hard Day's Night, and somewhat controversially, Tenet is the bad film.
Yes. Also, not that controversial. Online, it seems like a lot of the reviews are negative. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but the general rule I feel like we go with is that it's like the universal acclaim / universally panned. So... Tenet actually has a pretty high rating on Metacritic and stuff, and
it does. Yeah,
I think it's just
and people
generally
love
people. Yeah, I think a lot of people like it, but I also think a lot of people don't like it.
I think this is reminiscent of our Cats episode. This one is going to be just shrouded in controversy, and all I can say is fuck all y'all.
Yeah, I mean we made the agreement to do this episode, agreeing that Tenet is the bad movie. Before I had seen it. So I didn't actually know if it was the bad movie. I was just going off of like the internet's kind of reputation and how it was, how most of the people that I talked to who saw it responded and said that it was bad.
Mike, before we get into it, what, just in like a quick sort of summary, how did you feel about it?
I didn't think it was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it...
I didn't think so either.
I found it annoying to watch up until the very end. And even after it ended, I was like, meh. So it definitely was kind of the epitome of misspent potential, I guess.
Yes.
It had a lot. Yeah. It had a lot going for it, but it ended up kind of just being nonsensical and kind of boring.
Everything felt cliched and contrived. Are the two words I would use.
One thing that I thought when I was watching it was it felt like Christopher Nolan. I call him Nolan.
Because you're on a last name basis.
On a last name basis. It felt like Chris Nolan was
call him Chris.
Was parodying himself.
That is what it felt like.
It seemed like he was almost making fun of himself, and he was purposefully kind of being dumb or bad with his choices.
It felt like he was leaning into what YouTubers hated so much about him.
YouTubers don't like Chris Nolan?
Well, there are certain YouTubers, a lot of them do like him, but there are certain YouTubers who, I haven't seen these videos, but just based on the titles, it's like Christopher Nolan has an exposition problem, or Christopher Nolan doesn't have emotions, just stuff like that.
You're talking about like people who do video essays?
Yes.
And they're just like, Chris Nolan has a problem with exposition.
Yes, that very exact thing.
That's that specific way that those video essays talk, where everything's just a little too precious.
Yeah, well, and they're all sponsored by Squarespace, but we don't need to get into that right now.
I wish we were sponsored by Squarespace.
Please, Squarespace, sponsor us, because I could use the money, and I'm sure Mike could too.
Yeah, I could.
To add to his poster collection. I can only see one poster behind his head, and I'd like to see more. Okay, well, let's talk about these films really quick.
Sure.
Since we're dealing with time,
yes,
sort of with both films, let's start chronologically. So let's talk about A Hard Day's Night, not It's a Hard Day's Night.
No. A Hard Day's Night stars the Beatles.
Sorry, who?
The Beatles.
I don't know who that is. Who are you talking about?
They're a band.
What's a band?
I feel like I have a lot of work to do here. To make you understand what this movie is. What did you think you were watching when you were watching this?
I thought it was a really ambiguous review of Tenet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So A Hard Day's Night is a British musical comedy film directed by Richard Lester. It came out in 1964, the height of Beatlemania. And the Beatles were a musical foursome from Liverpool. They pretty much were like the best band of the 60s, potentially the best band ever, depending on your opinion.
Suck on that, Rolling Stones.
So we're going to take a little detour. Are you a Beatles person or a Rolling Stones person?
I'm a Beatles person.
Yeah, same.
I can appreciate the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, but the Beatles are clearly like the better band by a large margin, and anybody who likes the Rolling Stones and think that they're the better band can go suck eggs. So,
but what about Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys?
I'm also a big Beach Boys fan, so I would say
because they were 60s.
Yeah, I think that it goes the Beatles, Beach Boys, Rolling Stones.
Wow, Brian Wilson, if he's listening to this episode. A single tear has just rolled down his cheek.
Well, I mean, he would agree.
Yeah, maybe he would.
I feel like he would. Anyway, back to the facts about A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
The film was a big success financially. I think they spent £189,000, which is about $250,000. Pretty cheap, seems like. It made $11 million originally, so I'm sure it's made quite a bit of money for them. So good for them. United Artists. It was also, I thought this was strange. It was nominated for Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay.
That can't be true.
I know, because the screenplay is
surely
all
that's
over
a
the
lie.
place. But I think it was, I don't know what your thoughts are on it now, but I feel like it felt like it was kind of, people had never seen anything like this at the time.
As true as that may be, I don't think that warrants an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, okay, well.
The film felt like there wasn't a script.
Yeah, I know. But that's why it's so clever.
Sure. Yeah. Anyways, what else about the film, Mike?
It's been rated as one of the 100 all-time great films by Time Magazine and British Film Institute and all that stuff. British Film Institute ranks at 88th. It takes place over 3 days in the lives of the Beatles. And the Beatles were comedy fans, so they were into the director Richard Lester's stuff. He made a short film called The Running, Jumping, Standing Still film, which John Lennon really liked. So when they got to choose who was going to direct their film, for some reason they got to make that choice. They chose Richard Lester because he worked with the Goons.
Oh, like Peter Sellers?
Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan and the other guy.
Yeah, from the Goon Show.
Blue Ball. Yeah. So
nice.
So the movie kind of is a proto music video, I think a lot of people say, where it kind of used a lot of film techniques which later made their way into music videos.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a semi-fictional account of the Beatles' lives. The screenwriter kind of wanted to comedically parody just how the Beatles are essentially just trapped being famous and how like their lives kind of suck, but like make that funny.
Uh-huh.
And the screenwriter the Beatles chose because he also was like a famous playwright and film writer and had written Liverpudlian characters. So they were like, that's where we're from.
Mm-hmm.
The actor Wilfrid Bramble, who played Paul McCartney's grandfather, was like he's a British and Irish TV star.
Oh, okay.
I always found that character such a strange contribution to the film because his specific, like the jokes that they make about him are essentially that he's a strange, dirty old man.
What does clean mean?
Well, I was just going to say
does that mean he's a perv?
Yeah, the whole clean joke is basically an inside joke to people who know who he is because he always played a dirty old man on his sitcom Steptoe and Son.
Right.
Which is the most British sounding sitcom.
Yeah. And it doesn't sound that funny.
No, but anyway, he's always referred to as a dirty old man on that. So when they wrote the script, they're like, oh, he's very clean.
Yeah. So, well, they said it so many times.
The movie was filmed in March of 1964 and it was released in July of 1964, which is insane.
Nice. That's like a YouTuber's turnaround.
So they filmed it, edited it, and did all the ADR and packaged it and then released it. But they were editing it while they were filming it. So the film's title, A Hard Day's Night, not It's a Hard Day's Night.
Sorry.
Came from Ringo Starr, who just kind of said dumb stuff a lot. And the quote is from an interview with a DJ.
That's disc jockey for those who don't know.
That's right, yeah. So Ringo said, we went to do a job and we worked all day. And we happened to work all night. I came up still thinking it was day, I suppose. And I said, it's been a hard day's night. So it came to a hard day's night.
Wow. There's also something so unromantic about that story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the song title came to me from Flub.
Yeah, essentially.
You know, like just flubbing it. And then just sticking with it after that. There's something really unremarkable about that. It's a great song, though.
But it's catchy. It's like a catchy phrase.
Yeah. It's a hard day's night.
Oh, yeah. Richard Lester also directed Help, which came out a year later. And it's kind of more structured spoof of James Bond kind of movies. And it was also a big success, although not as good. But higher production value.
Worse film.
Oh, it's dramatically worse.
Yeah, like and it's in color versus black and white.
Yeah.
They obviously had more money, but the quality is just like down the toilet.
Yeah, there's so much about Help that's just not as fun and good as A Hard Day's Night. Hard Day's Night is just really fun and weird.
But again, Help, great song.
Great song, great album. Both.
It's a help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And lastly, there is a novelization of the film. So there is a companion book for all of the people out there.
A phantasmagorical companion book to A Hard Day's Night.
Mm-hmm, yes. Yeah, there's like a lot of the actors who are in the movie are also sketch comedy or British comedians. So yeah, the Beatles just were comedy fans. And so I think that they liked being able to perform with some sketch comedy people. Mm-hmm. And it's a comedy, I guess. So Richard Lester comes from sketch. These other guys come from British comedy. So yeah, the whole vibe of the movie really makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, A Hard Day's Night. That's it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Sweet. So this has been from Justin and Kane.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Happy New Year. Okay, Tenet, the hot button film of 2020. Tenet.
Also, is it the new year? You know, what I mean?
What?
Is the new year like just because we have a calendar that says the new year? Because
it's completely arbitrary.
Based on the events that have been going on, it still feels like 2020 is happening. You know what I mean? Not a new take. Also, by the way,
here's the thing, man. If a dumpster's on fire and then you decide arbitrarily that it'll stop being on fire at a certain time, chances are it's still going to be on fire.
Oh yeah,
after that time you've decided upon. The new year is arbitrary, but that's neither here nor there. So Tenet, oh my God, Tenet, Jesus Christ.
That's the sequel. Tenet.
Tenet 2, Tenet.
20th.
God, what would the sequel to Tenet even be about?
Well, I think the question is what is Tenet even about? You know what I mean?
Nobody knows, including Kenneth Branagh, who has said in many interviews he doesn't know what happened in the movie. Okay, so Tenet, released in 2020, Christopher Nolan's most recent film, has to do with time inversion, not so much travel, but inversion, which is a concept that is being theorized by physicists. And it's the idea that time can be basically reversed, but the actions that occur within the time that has happened forward will happen again in reverse. And so that's sort of the point of this whole film. And the name of the film is a palindrome. The idea of like time being a palindrome is played with a lot in the film. And it's basically like an espionage thriller. And it stars Robert Pattinson and John David Washington, Kenneth Branagh, and Kenneth Branagh's wife, whose name I can't remember at the moment. But anyways, it's a spy thriller, released in 2020. It is, I think it was thought to be a more successful film than it turned out to be, but that's basically just because of COVID. So it was made for $205 million as an estimated production price, and it made 363 globally, which is like pretty good considering the hardships it had to endure during its theatrical release.
Yeah, tell me about it.
That being said, like Inception made over $1 billion, Dark Knight made over $1 billion, so I'm sure Christopher Nolan's not super stoked on that number, even though $363 million is a lot of cash for Warner Brothers.
Yeah, but I think whenever a movie is like, the budget was $200 million, they usually say double that because of marketing and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So basically, the film lost money is the gist of it, but not because of its artistic merit, purely based on circumstance.
Oh, why did they put it out during the pandemic? Did you figure that out?
Well, from what I've gleaned from the internet, Tenet was the litmus test for other box office decisions. And they thought they would release Tenet because it was a film a lot of people wanted to watch. It was released. During that time, the situation with COVID was different in every part of the world, and therefore there was no consistency as far as the rollout went. And this film, because of its sort of high box office A-list status, was a good litmus test, and it failed, basically. It failed the test because, you know, people were catching COVID. It didn't make any money. It's making money off rentals now, so I'm sure it'll be fine in the long run. But it basically illustrated to film studios and distributors that movie rollouts in a traditional sense weren't going to work for the foreseeable future.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. It's a spy thriller. It really feels in the vein of Christopher Nolan films. It has a lot of his tropes. A lot of practical effects were used. They crashed a real 747 into an air hangar. Originally, that was supposed to be done with models. And then they realized it'd be more cost effective to just buy an actual plane and crash it.
Why? Why is that more cost effective?
I don't know. That's just what they said. I don't know why. That's just the argument that was made.
Okay.
Tenet is part of a 5-word Latin puzzle, which is basically 5 Latin words that are all palindromes, but put together. So Tenet's in the middle because it... or maybe not in the middle. I don't know. It's a 5x5 square with 5 words.
Yes.
And all 5 words are used in the film. But basically, any way the square is oriented, it spells out those words because the letters in each word, it's like a Sudoku. Like it works out as a puzzle in any direction.
There's Tenet, so Sator, Arepo, Opera, Rotas.
So all the words are used as character names and like institutional names within the film.
Yes.
The film was like, it's the highest amount of IMAX shots of any Christopher Nolan film, from what I gather. So like with every film, he's been pushing the envelope with shooting IMAX film, which is a large format film shooting, which basically just means the negative is massive and the machines are really loud and they're cumbersome and large. And he's used them in The Dark Knight Rises. He's used them in Interstellar. He's used them in Dunkirk. He used them the most. And then Tenet has now passed that line. Mm-hmm. And they, like, I think on some sequences they had like 16 IMAX cameras going, like crazy shit. Also, like, I feel like the roll of IMAX film on 35 mil, you could get like 11 minutes depending on how many perforations there are. But on a IMAX, you get 2.5 minutes for a roll of film, which is like nuts. And it sounds like an air conditioner. Like,
yeah,
it's super loud.
I feel like the scenes that need IMAX camera in the movie would
don't have sound anyways, because you have to do it in post.
Yeah, it's gonna just be like, and then over top of that you put wow, or when it's reversed, it's like wow.
Actually, that's a great segue, because the last point I wanted to make is this is maybe his most infuriating film from a public opinion standpoint, because the sound mix with the dialogue has upset many people.
Yeah. I didn't think it was that bad.
This is from most people who saw it in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently in theaters, the film is deafening. You have no idea what anybody's saying. The film is confusing out of the gate, but now you're listening to really loud Christopher Nolan sound mix and very quiet dialogue. So the heavy exposition you can't even hear to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
It's not so bad at home. Like, I didn't have an issue. And also I had the option to put on subtitles if I wished.
I did that too, yeah.
Yeah. Especially at the end when Kenneth Branagh is explaining the whole situation over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it twice and just put on the subtitles because I was like, man, is he quiet? He's like whispering into his cell phone while there's a war scene going on. Like, go to hell. But anyway, so that was like a huge controversy with the film. And probably the number one complaint was just the sound mix. Christopher Nolan really likes to argue that he's trying to make the most immersive film possible. And sound is part of that. But I do think like it feels a bit unnecessary, the whole mix situation. And like the sound is loud.
Well, I read that the theaters that were screening it on film had a harder time hearing it than the ones that were screening the digital video thingy that they get.
Oh, really?
The digital cinema package.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Kind of depends on the venue.
Yeah. That's what I read. I don't know how true that is. I didn't see it in the theater because I didn't want to catch the dreaded lurgy, as the Brits would say.
That's funny. Let's start us off, Mr. Robertson.
So, Hard Day's Night and Tenet are the same film. That is the thesis of this episode.
Yes. And we'll tell you why they're the same film.
Did you find a lot of similarities?
I did. I found this to be one of the easiest, actually.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I after a while, I just stopped because it became boring finding similarities.
Wow, very cocky sounding.
Yeah.
So, I think, both movies were intended to be something different than what they ended up being. So, Hard Day's Night was meant to be kind of like a goofy, just like tossed off movie to capitalize on the Beatles' success, but it ended up being a classic comedy that kind of redefined genre.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tenet seems like it was meant to be a self-serious masterpiece, but it ended up coming off as like a goofy parody of Christopher Nolan's work.
Yes. Yeah.
So they both kind of like defied the expectations of what they thought they were going to be.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Both films are both have British directors and are inherently European stories.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Thanks. That's it. That's just a nice succinct one. I just wanted to start off real easy.
Both of them end in a concert hall.
Wow.
In that Hard Day's Night actually ends in a concert hall because they're performing.
Yeah.
Tenet doesn't actually, but it technically does because it's a palindrome and the story is kind of reversey.
Yes.
So it starts in a concert hall, just applying the laws of how Tenet works. We didn't see the concert hall part, but it does end in a concert hall.
Yes. Yes.
So,
and realistically, the Beatles were coming from a concert hall.
Yeah.
Right. So realistically, the beginning of before A Hard Day's Night starts, they were obviously coming from another gig.
Yeah. It started with a musical sequence of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Both films feature British leads. So you have the Beatles and literally the rest of the cast. And then you have Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, John David Washington is not British, but he and Robert Pattinson really share the screen, and they're both very important to the film.
Yeah.
So I'd say there's a heavy British vibe in both films.
Big British vibe.
Yeah.
What does Tenet mean? What does that word mean?
It's being told to me.
It's Latin.
Tenet meaning. Just fucking Googling. A principle, belief, or doctrine generally held to be true, especially one held in common by members of an organization, movement, or profession. So yeah, like a list of tenets or a list of beliefs.
Okay.
So like religion has tenets, like there are tenets to Christianity or whatever, you know.
So
I've heard that sentence said.
What does the title mean regarding the film?
Nothing. It's just a palindrome. It's just an easy palindrome.
Okay.
It was either that or race car.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or no X
and race
Nixon.
car is 2 on the nose.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because there's no principles that are held firm to in the film.
Or maybe the idea of Tenet is that you shouldn't believe what you've already believed. You should ignore your tenets. Like John David Washington is like, he basically has to go against his instinct to actually figure out what's going on. And then he realizes that future him has planned all of this.
Right.
So maybe it's about the inversion of Tenet, and it's actually about the inversion of the definition of that word.
Oh, right. Yeah,
so you're inverting the word, and the title's a palindrome, and it's about time inversion, but it's also about the inversion of the meaning of things you believed in.
Yes.
So your tenets, the opposite are true.
Yes, very clever. Very probably what the point of the movie was. Yeah. For sure.
I took film studies for 2 weeks before dropping out, so bada bing, bada boom.
Both movies start with people running around a big public space filled with people, which is alarming to watch always in the last year. People being close to each other in that large group. And then the second scene is in a large vehicle.
Oh,
that could hold a lot of people, so...
Let me
like a boat in Tenet, and then they're in a train in the Beatles.
Let me piggyback that, because my thing was there's a fast moving, long, slender vehicle in both films that carries the main characters. So you have John David Washington on the fire truck when he has to steal one of the pieces of the time inversion technology from the future out of the semi truck, which is also a long, skinny vehicle, but he uses the fire truck to do so. And the Beatles ride the train, which is a long, skinny vehicle. And within that, there's lots of antics.
Yes. So many antics.
And deception. The Beatles are fucking with that old guy who moves into their cabin. And he doesn't let them turn on the radio. And John David Washington has to steal something without anybody noticing.
Both movies kind of deal with scrambled time.
Okay.
As in Tenet clearly, deals with scrambled time because it's forward time, and what the technical term that the film uses, reversey time, they call it in the movie, if I'm not mistaken. They are always just like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, you're in reversey time.
Oh.
So yeah, time is scrambled in the Beatles movie because, number one, Hard Day's Night, confusing, scrambly time title. Night and day, which is which? It's a hard day's night. What does that mean?
Oh my God. Both have bizarre titles also.
Yeah, they're both bizarre, yeah. Also, there's reversey footage too in the A Hard Day's Night.
Remind me what that is.
When they're doing Can't Buy Me Love and they're just running around in the park.
Right.
They have like a bunch of footage that's reversed where they jump up in the air. Pretty much the same.
Pretty much. Both films utilize the classic trope of espionage disguise. So in Tenet, there are two examples. There is John David Washington's, basically the fact that future him knows exactly what's happening, but he doesn't know. And he's disguising himself as a former, more ignorant person to have all the events unfold in a way that he wants them to. And the only way to achieve that is by being a less informed, older version of himself.
Right.
To do the temporal pincer move, which is the whole film.
Yes.
And the blonde lady, Sater's wife, played by Elizabeth Debicki, Kat, she plays her future self in place of her older self to fool Kenneth Branagh and then kill him. And then, in A Hard Day's Night, Paul McCartney wears a goatee early on in the film.
It's true. He does use a disguise. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Brilliant.
Yes.
In both films, there's a third act introduction of a boy, like a little child. In the third act, they kind of are just like, hey, here's a boy that you now have to interact with, which is like Sater and Kat's son.
Yeah.
Who keeps coming up, but we never see him. And then it's supposed to be this emotional anchor for those characters. But it's like, man, I don't know who this kid is and I don't care.
Christopher Nolan loves just bringing up kids.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? Like, holy fuck. That guy just can't figure anything else out. He's like, oh, these characters need to care? Let's make them have a kid.
Exactly, yeah.
Ugh.
And then in the Beatles movie, Ringo Starr interacts with a kid when he kind of goes off on his own.
Oh, right. And so does the old man.
Yeah, and so does the old man. Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, that's good.
And also in both movies, women are not featured really all that prominently. And when they are, they're kind of used as props or just kind of like
plot
things.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, or like objects of affection, but never like, yeah, Elizabeth Debicki's character, whatever her name was, Kat. She barely does anything. She just kind of exists to be saved or pass out.
It's also funny because they're like, oh, she's like a renowned art curator. Mm-hmm. But then she fucks up like immediately. Like she can't figure out the fraud piece. And it's like, well, obviously she's not that good, but you just said she is. So
she was just kind of a means to an end to introduce her husband. And once he was introduced, did you notice she stopped curating art?
No kidding.
Yeah, I didn't see her curate one piece of art later.
Terrible. Just terrible.
All these buildings are blowing up. She's not even curating art because, you know, it has to deal with her husband, I guess. She has to clean up sunscreen in that weird scene where she's like cleaning sunscreen for like 10 minutes. Like, what was that about?
But she was... So, Mike, I watched the film twice and I realized what she was doing was... But this was left out of the edit. She was squirting sunscreen onto the boat deck, and then she was wiping it off with the hose. But what that meant was she was actually lubricating the boat deck so that she could slide his body off when she shot him.
Oh, really?
That's what she was doing. But I had to watch it twice to figure that out. And it was not obvious. Yeah,
because the first time that I saw it, and the only time that I saw it, that part was dumb.
Also, she sweeps off the glass, like from the raspberry bowl, and she just uses the broom, and then you never see where it goes. And like, she's obviously just flicking shards of glass into the ocean.
Yeah.
Off the top deck.
She probably impaled many a fish.
Yeah, like just sharp shards into the ocean is a terrible solution. Like, just put that shit into a garbage, lady. Use a fucking, dustpan like a normal person. Anywho, this isn't a shit-talking podcast. This is an intellectual exercise podcast.
No, you can talk smack all you want.
So this one has to do with both films, and I think this greatly applies to both films. This is why they're the same film, okay? Both films, confusion ensues almost immediately as to what is actually happening.
Yes.
A Hard Day's Night does not make sense, really, as a film.
No,
many
not.
detours are made. You see John Lennon take a bath. You see Ringo Starr walk around and get arrested by police for no apparent reason. And at Tenet, you just don't really know what's going on. No. Everything's very high stakes. Everything's very precious. Everything's important, but also nothing makes sense. Yeah. So it's this sort of alienating effect that both films have. And you just kind of got to like buckle in and go for the ride or hit pause.
Yeah. For the first hour of the film, I was wondering what was happening. Why wasn't cool backwards time stuff happening?
Yeah.
And what was happening? So
yeah.
I really couldn't figure out what they were talking about. He basically just went from place to place, had a meeting with somebody. There was never enough description of like what was going on or what was important. And yet all they did was talk in exposition.
I know. For a film with so much exposition, none of it affected your understanding of what was going on, you know?
Yeah, I really feel like they could have made a shorter film that didn't explain stuff as much, and it would have made more sense.
100%.
Yeah. Very confusing movie. But by the end, I kind of understood it. But even then, it was like, whatever.
Yeah. It wasn't... It wasn't amazing. Also, like, this is another similarity I had that kind of relates to this, Mike, is that both films utilize something in lieu of good filmmaking. So A Hard Day's Night used Beatles songs to just captivate the audience rather than tell a good story. Yeah. And I thought Christopher Nolan did the same thing with action.
Yeah.
So he had these major, like, action showcase moments, but really, what did they have to do with anything? Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, even like chucking gold out of the plane, it's like, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in Tenet where it's like, and now this happens, and then you have to go get this thing, and then this is a thing, and then you have to remember about this.
It's just a big old fucking scavenger hunt, really, of just running around.
Yeah, but also
without character.
I still, even though I didn't really care for the movie, I still think that directors should be able to do big swings, even if they miss.
For sure.
This was a big swing and a miss, I think.
Yeah.
Because I really liked Mother by Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah.
And that was a big swing, and it just happened to work, but it could have been a huge, huge bomb.
I'm not against big swings at all.
There's definitely room for movies like this where it's an audacious thing that falls short.
I will say, like, my perception of Tenet was not a big swing. It almost felt like he was playing it safe.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of my take, because this felt like a watered down Inception. I thought Inception was a big swing, and it landed.
Yeah, maybe my interpretation of a big swing, maybe I only see it as that because it missed.
Are you calling it a big swing because he was like, you know what? I'm going to have a protagonist whose name is Protagonist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he did dumb shit like that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
No, like, Inception's a big swing because he's like, oh, I'm a franchise filmmaker. I make action movies. I only work with pre-existing intellectual property that really like garners a ton of success for me. And now I'm going to try to make Insomnia, but with $200 million instead of $2 million.
Right.
And that's kind of what Inception was. But Tenet was just like, it felt like a watered down echo of what he's already done.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody always forgets about Insomnia.
Yeah. And it's a good
Remember
movie.
that movie he made?
Yeah. I do.
Based on the Swedish film or whatever. And it has Al Pacino and Robin Williams. What a cast.
And Memento's good. Memento's a solid movie.
Good, yeah.
But like those are like smaller films with really high concept ideas that work well. But then you have Tenet that's just like, oh yeah, you crashed an airplane. Oh wow, he's using a fire truck to steal something. Like that doesn't really make sense. And I know you're doing it for real in camera. Wow, it's so visceral. I still don't care. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Both movies start with a single note. In Hard Day's Night, it's like that classic.
Yeah, like the slapping of a guitar.
Tenet starts with like the orchestra warming up.
That's true.
But then also the score has those Inception-esque moments where it's like, wow, throughout the film, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but you know what's interesting is what's his face?
Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer didn't do the soundtrack.
Who did?
Someone else.
Johan Jorgensen or something like that. The guy
Johan Johansson.
Is that who it was?
No, it wasn't, because he just died.
He did, right? You're right.
He died like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Ludwig Göransson.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
Göransson, who is a young, long-haired man who is from Sweden. He did Black Panther, The Mandalorian. So yeah, he's being very successful, but this was his first Christopher Nolan movie, I think. But yeah, so it's, you know what's interesting though? It just felt like he was just emulating Hans Zimmer.
It did, yeah. That's what I thought. Hans Zimmer did it.
It was very unoriginal, in my opinion. I was just like, this feels like he's just playing it safe.
Well, you know, the Beatles also played their influences pretty close. So
that's true. That's true.
You know, Ludwig was channeling Hans, just as the Beatles were channeling, you know, Roy Orbison or Carl Perkins.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. You're more of a Beatle head than I am.
Yeah, I have read many a book on the Beatles, but I am having a hard time summoning any of the facts.
Okay, so both films you have to subtitle, not because they're not in English. Okay,
right.
Hear me out.
No, I already hear you. You don't need to. You don't need to say "hear me out."
You
need to say "bear with me."
No. Hear me out. Hear me out. Okay, let me just hear me out. I'm gonna make an argument here. Okay.
Okay.
The whole film of A Hard Day's Night is just riddled with Liverpoolian crazy shit coming out of their mouths. Liverpudlian shit just coming out of their mouths. And so much of it doesn't make sense. But also the accent at times, to the untrained ear, may need the assistance of reading to really understand what's going on. And with Tenet, the issue isn't so much dialect. The issue is volume. When shit's exploding, or Ludwig Göransson's score is too loud, whatever. Or you see John David Washington doing chin-ups on a boat in reverse, and the music is very loud. You're like, I wonder if he's talking right now. I don't know. What you put on the subtitles, you know exactly what's going on.
That's right.
And I will say, even with my personal TV, okay?
Your personal TV?
The mix ain't that bad. My personal television. Kenneth Branagh is on the phone, okay? He's on that satellite cell phone on his yacht. He literally explains the movie to John David Washington. I could not fucking hear a word he said. Because he's whispering so his wife doesn't hear, who is at the same time washing away sunscreen on the boat deck like a crazy person.
Yes.
And so I hit rewind and I turned on my closed caption. There's like a global warming thing going on here and blah, 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 you know?
Yeah, that seemed like, I think that the ending kind of seemed, I don't know how to say this, bad?
I don't know how to say this. Let me choose a single syllable word to describe exactly what I'm thinking.
Just the whole global warming thing, him being like, I don't want to live here because, or the future will clean up after us or whatever the hell, you know?
Yeah.
That whole like monologue he did, and then also at the end when John David Washington is like, I came up with Tenet, the organization, because I live in the past or something like that. Whatever the
no, because he lives in the future.
Yeah, whatever, you know.
and then he teneted all the way back.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me. Even if it makes sense on paper, it like literally
made no sense.
Makes no sense, no matter what. Doesn't matter how much you try and explain or justify it.
Yes.
It's silly. Both films revolve around like a formula or algorithm.
Ooh.
In a
names.
sense.
What do you mean?
Name names. In Tenet, like they have that bomb thing that's literally called this algorithm, which is just a
weird song and
a weird kind of like a bunch of pieces of metal that are just like kind of screwed into each other.
Yeah. It looks like just a puzzle you could buy from a gift shop.
Yeah. Was that supposed to be a bomb or something? I was trying to figure out exactly what this whole algorithm thing was.
So no. So So the algorithm has nothing to do with explosions, but it has to do with time inversion.
Yes.
And I don't totally understand this, but from what I gathered from watching it twice in a row was if you invert a nuclear explosion or a chain reaction of nuclear explosions, it is exponentially worse than a linear nuclear explosion.
Yes.
So the algorithm could invert a nuclear warhead, and that would be way worse than just a nuke going off.
Yeah.
And that was what they were preventing. It wasn't the actual warheads. It was that they could be inverted.
Yes.
Yeah. So the algorithm was like a weird fucking puzzle. It looked stupid.
Yeah.
It looked like a totem from Inception, almost just giant, that they had to like break up into little pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that algorithm, all that was from what I think, I don't know, maybe the haters will change our minds and tell us that we were wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's just a device to reverse time or invert time.
Right. So anyway, the algorithm, that weird kind of pipe thing that, must have cost $30 for the prop department to put together.
Like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. And in the Beatles movie, they're two of the greatest songwriters who ever lived.
Yeah.
There must be some sort of formula that they... secret formula that they have, or some sort of secret algorithm that they understand.
Totally.
That we all don't get, I think they're both similar 100%, in that way.
Man. That's a good one. Interesting hot take on the Beatles too. John and Paul. John and Paul. The Beatles.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all the ones I have.
I have a few more. Wow, for once, Bob's going to do a lightning round.
Wow, Bob's friggin' taking up the mantle.
Yeah, here we go. So, first of all, both feature weird old men causing trouble. So, you have Paul McCartney's grandfather in A Hard Day's Night, John McCartney, or whatever the fuck his name was, who is just a troublemaker throughout the whole film.
He's such a mischievous man.
He's a little shit is what he is. And you have Michael Caine, who has a very quick scene, but you can tell he's the boss of something. And he orchestrates something in Tenet.
What? Michael Caine's in this movie?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. When did this happen?
Early on, John David Washington goes to a hotel to have dinner with Michael Caine.
Oh, right. He does.
And then he asks to get the food in a doggy bag. And then the server's like, no, that's not happening. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but he hands him a credit card. So basically... So Michael Caine obviously represents the government agency that doesn't exist that hires John David Washington to save the world.
Of course.
And so he gives him the credit card, but he obviously knows what's going on and what the stakes are. And realistically, that character would be the gatekeeper to all of this shit happening, and be aware of what's happening and be like, yeah, spend tax dollars on a new suit and like stop this criminal from inverting the world and da-da-da. So both feature old men who cause trouble.
I mean, yeah. Very silly that the movie features the words save the world.
Yeah.
It is kind of silly that they say the words save the world. Like there's that's what the stakes are. We have to save the world. And it's just this weird random dude.
The film synopsis.
Who doesn't know what's going on.
Well, no, I know. It's very strange. And the film synopsis is like to prevent World War III.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that is some high stakes shit to just put on some guy's shoulders, Anywho, the next one I have is both films feature military vehicles. So in the climax, you have Robert Pattinson in the blue group. You have John David Washington in the red group. They're doing a temporal pincer movement on some ambiguous empty village somewhere in like Russia or Siberia where the air quotes algorithm is that they need to steal before an explosion goes off. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But you see military vehicles. So you see like twin prop helicopters. You see the vehicle that Robert Pattinson drives. Blah, blah, blah. And then you see John Lennon in A Hard Day's Night soaking in the tub. And he has a U-boat, like a battle cruiser, I think another boat. And he's reenacting a hypothetical war scenario.
That's correct. He is, yeah.
And I would argue the stakes felt just about the same in both scenes. Both films involve working against the clock as well. So there's a literal clock in both films that is counting down. Yes. So you have the watches on John David Washington and Robert Pattinson's wrists counting down the 10 minutes before the algorithm nuke situation happens. And in A Hard Day's Night, you have the gig, which is at, I assume, 8 p.m. London time, but they can't find Ringo.
That's right, they can't.
And so they have to work against the clock to find Ringo, and they also don't know where Paul's grandfather is.
Yeah, it's like basically very similar films in that just like, we have to do this thing. Oh, but then this other smaller problem. We have to solve that first.
Both
films, we solved it.
I think both films heavily feature a MacGuffin.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the gig in A Hard Day's Night, and it's the algorithm, in air quotes, in Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a MacGuffin, and that's sloppy storytelling on both parts.
Yeah, well, even the part where he's about to get killed when he's underground, I think.
Yes.
And then that guy's about to shoot him. And then all of a sudden, some random dude just jumps in the way and takes the bullet, and you never really find out who that guy is.
No. So that is Robert Pattinson.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I'm just showing my ass here. I don't know.
No,
I didn't understand this movie at all.
Buddy, I watched the film twice, and I still don't know what's going on. But I had to watch that scene twice with the phone call, and I realized that was Robert Pattinson.
Oh, okay. But then he came alive later.
I know, because he's and multiple hymns exist.
Right, yes.
Because he is, like, you know how at the end of the movie, like, the helicopters are taking off, and that random fucking guy with the beard is just chucking the pieces to each of them, and he's like, I'll kill you if I find you, whatever that means. Also, who are you, man? Like, you don't even have a fucking name.
Talk about Ives?
Yeah, Ives. Yeah. I guess he does have a name.
He literally has a name in the movie. just a couple of monkeys just showing our red asses.
But he's just some random fucking guy. You know what I mean? Who just shows up. And he all of a sudden he's the one who's like, listen, there are rules here and I'm going to enforce them.
Yeah.
But anywho,
and we win by failing this mission.
Exactly. But Robert Pattinson says, he and John David Washington go blah, 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 da, da, da. And the conversation ends with him going, I'll catch it on the next pass.
Yes, right.
Which means he's going in and out multiple times. And like realistically with time inversion, there can't be. Well, there are two of you. There's the you in that timeline and then the you going through that timeline in reverse. So you could, I guess,
right,
like invert yourself so many times that there are multiples of you.
Yeah, and
you know what's going on. Like you could get really fucky with the idea of time inversion. So obviously, I think that was Robert Pattinson. I remember watching it that it made sense to me very briefly the second time, and I think it was Robert Pattinson.
So does that mean that there's no stakes in the movie because you can always reverse time?
Well, Mike, what's happened has happened.
What happened?
It's the whole thesis of the film.
Yeah, I guess.
So yeah, there are actually no stakes. But that's also not proven. So maybe the tenet is what's happened has happened. But then you have Kat killing Kenneth Branagh,
right?
Which didn't happen originally, but then it does happen.
Yes.
So you're changing time.
It's that actually makes me think of one of the best lines in A Hard Day's Night.
What?
He's like, "Who's that old man there?" It's like, "That's my grandfather." It's like, "That's not your grandfather. I've seen him." And he's like, well, everyone's entitled to two, aren't they?
Right.
Like, that's a great little joke.
It is, yeah.
Just similarly in Tenet, everyone's entitled to two people of themselves, because there's a past version and a future version.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Also, do you think that line that John said was a double meaning when he said that I've seen him, and what he actually meant was I've seen that guy on TV?
It probably, could be.
I bet you it was a double entendre.
Could have been,
I've seen him. The fucking guy's a comedian.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Very clean.
Very clean.
Very clean.
Even though he's not, he's like obviously a perv in the movie too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's I think the joke. He's very clean, but he's a dirty old man.
He's very clean in a perverted way.
I think at one point someone calls him a dirty old man too.
I do believe so. Yeah. And then he yells, "Oh, you've seen my work?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Both impact the whole world. So you're trying to end World War III in Tenet, which is obviously affecting the whole world. And the Beatles were so famous, you could argue that they had an impact on the whole world.
They truly did, yeah. They changed rock and roll forever.
Exactly. So both had like bizarrely high stakes, considering how trivial and dumb the movies were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for the Beatles and A Hard Day's Night, we wouldn't have the Monkees.
That's true. And if we didn't have the Monkees, we wouldn't have our big red butts that we're showing all through this episode.
When I was watching Tenet, I kind of fell asleep a little bit. I caught myself, I paused it, I got up, did a little jog around the room, got myself full of energy again so I could continue watching it. But I was like, this is a familiar feeling, because I'd previously fallen asleep during Inception. And I saw Inception in the theater. I don't remember what I had been doing, but I was just exhausted. It had been a hard day's night, I guess, at that point in my life.
No kidding.
So, I must have been working a long day or just stayed up late or who knows what was going on. But I was seeing Inception in the theater, and I didn't start drifting off until like late into the film. So once they kind of introduced the different layers of the dream world, right at the very, very, like the third act where they kind of have the deepest dream world, that's when I started to really start to fall asleep.
Literally the climax of the film.
So the movie made no sense to me at that point. It was
also
just
you if you were like dozing on and off, you'd like wake up, it'd be the hotel, fall back asleep, you wake up and it's like the winter world, and then you fall asleep, and then you wake up and then it's like the rainy bit with the guy driving the panel van, and you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was like. I was just kind of falling asleep, and I could still hear the movie in my brain. So I was dreaming the film, but the film was nonsense at that point because my brain was like converting it to my own dream logic. But I had another layer of the Inception that everybody else didn't get to experience, which I always thought was just a real fun private experience that I got to have with this movie.
Do you remember what those dreams were that you were having?
No, there's something about guns and going into people's brains. I don't remember.
Oh my God. Imagine if you dreamed 5 levels in your own dream from a film about dreaming.
Yeah.
4 or 5 levels. You're really 10 deep.
Well, I do remember like that day I had some sort of cool idea in my head. And then I do remember when I fell asleep during Inception, somebody came into my brain and stole that idea.
Leonardo
and then planted
DiCaprio?
A different one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you decided to be friends with me, because I planted that idea in your brain.
Yeah.
Over the voice, like intercom, I was like, you're going to like Bob now.
Okay.
And then you woke up and you were like, huh? And then we hung out, and this happened.
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah, it all makes sense now.
I thought I should fess up.
I mean, that's either a completely baller move or just the most pathetic thing I've ever heard in terms of like, this is how you make friends. You incept them.
But Tenet has shown us that both can be true simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's super baller and also very, very sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. So sad. I also have a question about Tenet.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is a reference to a previous episode of ours where we, the last episode actually we released, where we did our side pod. When did they poop?
Right.
So you don't see anybody poop in Tenet.
But when did they poop?
Well, not even so much when did they poop, but my question, and maybe this is deserving of an entire side pod. I
know where you're going with this.
Does poop go back into the butt? Because when they do go to the bathroom in the film, logically, poop goes out of the butt, but then there's also the reversey version of themselves where the poop goes into the butt.
So, I knew you were going here with this as soon as you started talking.
Just all of the different things that happen with a human body has to have been reversed. So if they fart, they suck air into their butt. If they puke, they suck.
From what I can gather, because Kat's gun wound is inverted.
Yes.
and that is a bodily function.
Yes.
Bleeding and healing. So obviously if you shit, but what's interesting is her gun wound heals without her getting unshot.
Right.
Or shot like forward or whatever. So if you say you take a quick trip to the 7-Eleven on the corner, drop a deuce, invert time, would you naturally... No, you wouldn't. You would see yourself taking a shit, but you wouldn't literally take a shit, I guess. Like the actual definition of that phrase, and like get an inverted poop. I think you would witness it, and maybe would you just feel the sensation? Like the physics aren't there that, because so Mike, no. This is what it is.
Wow, Bob is really sweating over there now.
I gotta take my shirt off. I'm drenched in sweat right now. Yeah. So you know how an explosion is ice inverted?
Yes.
Would pooping just be peeing inverted? Or
interesting. It would be gas because it's
No. Hear me out. The inversion of pooping would be intense hunger.
Okay, go on.
Or you would have the sensation of just eating, or it would be pee. I don't know. But that's a really cool question.
Yeah, Tenet asks a lot of the big questions that most of us are afraid to ask.
And but you know what's nuts about, like, say, let's talk about Interstellar really quick.
Okay. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Then I'm not going to get into it. But,
all the
Kanines know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, you enter a black hole and like, what's going on with your bowels? Let's leave that for another episode. We'll cover Interstellar in the future.
Yeah, you're going into a black hole. What's up with the brown hole? You know what I'm asking? For all of the Kanines who were like, you know what? I hated that Where Did They Poop episode.
You mean all of them?
Us returning to the scene of the crime is not a positive thing for them. They're like, I'm going to give them a chance because I want to hear what they have to say about Tenet. But no, we're back to our immature
we're not going to talk about it every
antics.
Time.
No,
but
of course
an
not.
Inverted poop is really interesting as a concept.
There's like a lot of questions that I had that when we were watching Tenet that were unrelated to all of the weird plot contrivances they have in the film.
Yes,
it was more just where did poop go? Up the butt? Question mark.
Up the butt. I'm really glad you brought that up because my mind is just spinning now with different theories.
Well, I did tweet this out as a joke the other day.
Yeah.
And after I watched the movie, because that was the first thought I had after watching the movie.
Right.
Somebody online said that actually happens in a book called Time Zero.
Really?
They have a poop that goes into a butt. And I have a copy of that book and I've never read it. So I'm going to read it and just find that passage and just be like, that's as far as it'll go. I also was informed that is something that they explore in the TV show Red Dwarf.
Really?
Yeah.
Does poop go up the butt?
There's an episode called Backwards of Red Dwarf.
Right.
There's a Red Dwarf episode called Backwards, and they kind of explore that idea, I guess.
It starts and ends with the main character sitting on the good old-fashioned turlet.
Yeah. Well, the time reversey idea in Tenet, I did read something about that. In terms of how the universe works, there's like a theory that the universe is a palindrome, and that the Big Bang is basically just the Big Bang is the center point of this palindrome.
Right.
Or it could be the end of the palindrome, but I think it's the center point. So that means that we're in the reverse universe right now. Weird.
Does that mean our time is actually going backwards or is it going forwards?
Well, I don't know. When did the Big Bang happen, Like we understand that the Big Bang already happened. So that means that it happened in the past for us. But then also we're talking about this. So that means that the reverse version of our universe where everything plays out in reverse either happened forward and then what I'm saying now is actually reverse. Lots to think about. It's like, how does this work?
Okay. Wow. What a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
wow. I feel like you should watch Interstellar, Mike.
Okay. Why?
I feel like you like time. You like the idea of Does poop go in or out? And I think this movie would really tickle your fancy. That's all I can say.
Okay. Well, I find Christopher Nolan an interesting filmmaker. He has these cool ideas, but he kind of thinks about them in a really kind of immature way, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Not trying to throw shade at Chris Nolan, but
he listens to this, and I'm sure we're going to be hurting his feelings.
He's like, I don't like when they said that to me. You make me cry, crikey. Hope they catch the dreaded lurgy. So,
shit.
Well, it's I just find it so weird that he has these really cool ideas.
Yeah.
Like Memento, he's like, what if we tell the story backwards, where every scene is like in reverse? Or Inception is like, we go into the dream world, and whatever happens in the real world affects the dream world, and like there's all those cool things. And then Tenet, obviously, we've explored that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason it's kind of immature is that all he does is just like, let's throw guns into this. Like the stories that he tells with these cool ideas are dumb.
Well, even Inception's ridiculous. Like the beginning, it feels like a James Bond film, but then you realize like, oh, when I shoot somebody, they just wake up.
Yeah.
And it's like, why the fuck would you dream this scenario like in this beautiful Asian castle on the coast? You know what I mean? And it's like, what? Nobody dreams like that.
Exactly.
You just dream boring bullshit.
But then also, like, why when you have these powers at your disposal? Because it's always like someone being like, I figured out how this time thing works, so I'm going to take advantage of this and just commit dumb crimes. Or I'm just going to be a criminal, but with time. You know, or like, same with Inception is like, I'm going to go into people's brains and just kind of be a criminal in a dumb way. And it's like, sure, I guess.
I had a hard time believing literally all the characters in Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Kenneth Branagh wouldn't, like, his character, I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy him being this evil.
No,
like, does he really have a reason? Like, they bring up his terminal illness, like, literally in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, that doesn't help. That just feels like sloppy backpedaling.
Yeah, well, I think that that's just the trend of filmmaking, it seems like, where you have to introduce all of the big plot points at the end. Or all of the big twists. It was like a twist. Yeah, it's like a twist. But
it's only like, a twist if it's at the end.
Exactly. But it kind of doesn't work because you're like, why is anything happening? And then they explain it. And you're just like, oh, okay, I guess. But it would have been much more interesting and less confusing if they said that off the top. Yeah. Because at least you know why the bad guy's doing the dumb stuff he's doing.
Yes.
Even if it's still dumb. It's like, at least you know kind of why he's doing it instead of being like, here's the big twist. Is like, oh, now I know why what your character motivation is. Mm-hmm. After 2.5 hours. Thank you for finally sharing that with me.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just wanted to, gratify you.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you betcha, buddy.
I do think it is so silly that his brain only extends as far as we have to have people shoot each other still. Like,
yeah, literally. That's like every movie's done that.
Why not apply like this cool idea to an entire story just about the personal lives of this family instead of having some bad cliched criminal guy have to shoot somebody?
I know. I just don't think he's capable of doing that.
No.
I don't think he's like smart enough to think outside his own box.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just painted himself into a corner he finds really comfortable.
Yeah.
And he's like, within this, like, there's enough interesting material to work with, which is not true.
Yeah.
But, here we are. It's 2021. We've both seen Tenet on YouTube. The world is crazy, man.
It is very crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Beatles album? Are you a Beatles fan?
I am. Yeah. I'm a Beatles fan. That's so when I was a kid, it was Yellow Submarine.
Of course.
But now it's Abbey Road.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think Abbey Road's number one for me.
Interesting.
But I loved Yellow Submarine as a kid, and I fucking loved the movie. I had it on VHS in square aspect ratio, like with the sides chopped off, and I just still loved it. How about you, Mike?
For the longest time, I think it was like the Real Underdog Magical Mystery Tour.
Oh.
Yeah. But that's when I was young. Like,
have you seen the film?
I have it on VHS.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've seen it only on VHS, and it is wild.
Well, Paul McCartney directed it. It's
really?
It's less than an hour long.
There's some female nudity in it, too.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, okay. It was bizarre. The whole thing was bizarre.
Well, you have a list of all of the boobs you've seen, so.
Well, they're the only ones I've ever seen, so you got to keep the list going, you know?
Yeah, it's true, yeah. Yeah, no, but anyway, I used to love that movie. No, sorry, I used to love the soundtrack to that movie, the album.
Right.
I never liked the movie. I did.
What about Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band?
I think
you're not into that album?
I do think it's good.
Yeah,
but for whatever reason, it's a little bit too like corny, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I did, like, when I was a kid, I would go to my friend's house. His parents were huge Beatle fans, and I would I recorded "I Am the Walrus" off of their Magical Mystery Tour vinyl, so I could listen to it on a cassette tape at my own house over and over and over again. I just had that one song on a tape. Nice. I loved "I Am the Walrus" so much.
Nice. That's such a bizarre song.
Yeah, it's great. Also, the Beatles did a lot of loopy, reversey stuff.
Yes, they did. They did a lot Tenet-y. Of the Tenet thing.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. But I guess my current favorite Beatles album. I think my current favorite Beatles album is probably the White Album. Still, maybe.
I was just gonna say, let me guess, the White Album.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's everyone's.
They're
favorite,
all good, but all of the Beatles albums are good. So therefore, all of them are bad. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really tough to decide.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It's tough.
They keep remastering them too.
I know.
And the remasters sound good.
They sound real good. They sound remastered.
Yeah, if you listen to what's his face? George Martin, the producer of all the Beatles albums, his son Giles went back and reconstructed. He went back and reconstructed Sgt. Pepper.
Oh, cool.
And it's every instrument is remastered. The whole thing is just every single piece is redone.
Cool.
And it sounds so good. It sounds like something that would have came out just this week.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song?
Beatles song ever?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the Walrus probably still.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's it's kind of a punk song in a way.
Yeah.
Because John was kind of saying F you to the haters.
Yes.
You try and decode my music.
Yeah. And it's so fucking weird. I love the lyrics. They don't make any sense, and it's very fun.
What's your favorite Beatles song?
When I was a kid, it was Hey Jude.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I know. Cliche. I had a lot of feelings when I was young too, so it really tied in. I was really into Adele. I loved Hey Jude. I had a Gavin DeGraw phase. Anyways, I had a lot of feelings when I was younger. But now either Let It Be or Ellen or Rigby.
Wow.
Yeah. Or you know what?
Another good Beatles song that's kind of like a underrepresented song, Glass Onion.
Oh, Glass Onion's a great song.
Yeah.
I also love Oh Darling.
Yeah, that's good too, yeah.
Very it has a real Vietnam vibe, a fuck you to the war vibe,
Yeah, well, actually, you know what? The Beatles...
Or something, right?
Something.
Yeah, something, yeah.
This episode would actually... We just kind of pick these movies randomly, but it was actually very appropriate because I feel like Christopher Nolan and the Beatles traffic in a lot of the same kind of high concept ideas, where they would do high concept albums. They created the concept album with Sgt. Pepper's, you could say.
Yeah.
And then Abbey Road is a pretty big, lofty kind of concept for how the album is kind of rolls out.
And it was probably one of the first concept albums.
Mm-hmm.
With sort of this through line idea and tonality that they explored.
Well, I think Rubber Soul and Revolver, that era.
Yes. Yeah.
They were concept albums not thematically, but like sound wise, I think
they were, yeah.
The songs kind of like, especially Rubber Soul, the songs kind of really like feel like they really all connect.
And they like lead into each other.
Yeah.
Like there's a very like linear, like you kind of like, you can't just listen to one song. You got to put the whole thing on or don't listen at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think, so this was an appropriate comparison because I think they both kind of traffic in that like high concept stuff.
Yeah.
To various results. Like I think even Christopher Nolan, he had some big successes with high concept stuff, but Tenet was kind of like his overly complicated masterpiece in quotes. Not unlike the White Album.
Yeah.
Just things kind of unraveled a little bit. And it's still good, but it also is like a lot of people don't like it. You know, so this is his White Album, I guess. And Inception is what, like Rubber Soul or something? Or is that? I don't
know if I love Rubber Soul. Also, so like, I also love early Beatles.
You would.
I love the early stuff, like A Hard Day's Night. Like that's like, you know, that whole era was fucking rock solid. You know.
Yeah. Well. I
before the psychedelics like took in their vibe or whatever. You know.
I think that they're that era was good. I think previous to that, right as they were getting popular, I don't really like listening to those albums very much. Like there's 2 or 3 really, really banging songs, and then there's a bunch of like kind of okay covers, you know?
Yeah.
So I know some people really like that stuff, but whatever.
It's cool that in like a relatively short period of time, they had a lot of different vibes. You know, like that's cool for the fans.
Well, they also, like, they recorded their White Album when they were like 25 or 26 or something like that. So they were, they've only been at it for like 6 or 7 years, and they were already kind of at the end of their creative role.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. Whereas, we've been working on this podcast for like, in the time that it took us to record all of the episodes and put them out, you know, they would have released 2 or 3 classic albums.
Yeah,
and like 1 or 2 extra singles on top of that.
Yeah. Well, you know, they're just more prolific in terms of creation than we are, you know?
They also didn't have like the ability to binge watch television.
That's part of it for sure.
Yeah, like they can watch Cheers if they wanted to because it didn't exist.
I'm bored. I think I'll just write a song.
Exactly.
But you, Paul? Bored. Yeah, there's bored writing music, whereas you and I are like, I'm bored. I'm going to watch TV.
I'm bored. I'm going to play one of the 400 video games I own. I should.
Yeah. I should probably play through.
I should probably play through because I have some weird guilt for that. Yeah. What a time to be alive, I guess, is really what the point of all this is.
Yeah. Like if you have a dream, good luck getting it done because you're so distracted by all this other BS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The 60s
I could never be the Beatles.
Cool. Conscription wasn't cool, but I guess if you're British, it's not really your worry.
Actually, you know what's a really good Beatles album? I don't know if this counts.
Oh boy, here we go.
The Cirque du Soleil album.
No.
Called Love. Have you heard it?
No, I have heard it, yes.
It's awesome. It's just mashups of Beatles songs.
That's true. It's solid, but it's not their album.
No, it's not. It was
put
together by Giles again. Once again, Giles.
Fucking Giles getting his dirty little fingers in all the fucking Beatles songs, you know?
Yeah. Keep your hands off,
get
Giles.
Out of here.
Get out of here.
Giles. Fuck. Giles and his fingers.
Anyway, I think that album's sweet, even though it's not an official album.
Yeah, it is good, though. I do agree. Yeah. It's fun, but it's only fun because you know of all the other stuff. If it was a standalone thing and the Beatles had never existed, you'd be like, get out of here, Giles. But instead you're like, ooh, Giles. Yeah. Get your dirty little fingers more in this pie. Like, change it up, you know?
Yeah, Giles.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a pretty good episode. I think we're hitting episode length now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know it's highly controversial. There's some Nolan heads out there, as well as some Giles heads out there. And if we offended you, we're not sorry, but please don't email us. And I wonder what the Venn diagram for Giles heads and Nolan heads are. They're the one and the same. People who love Christopher Nolan love Giles. Yeah. Yeah, they fucking love Giles and his dirty little fingers getting all up in the Beatles business.
Hey, hands off, Giles, okay?
Yeah, Giles, just back off. Just mind your own business, Giles.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. This was a fun episode.
And Giles, if you're listening, I'm so sorry for what we said. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings. We just don't appreciate you. Just let that sink in. Anyways, thanks so much for listening. Yeah, this is controversial. I know. People love Tenet. They love Christopher Nolan. But I do think A Hard Day's Night is a better movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. I loved it.
It was, yeah.
And it was shorter.
Oh, mercifully shorter. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was the perfect length. They just get in that helicopter and fuck off, and you're like, nice.
The movie is actually so short that they repeat some of the songs that they already played.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes you wonder, like, they're prolific songwriters at that point. Like, couldn't they just pump in a couple extra songs, or were they just all from the album?
They had a bunch of other songs that they cut out of the movie.
Oh.
And then they just played these other ones twice, or even songs that weren't even on the Hard Day's Night album.
Yeah. That's really funny.
Like She Loves You, yeah. That's not on that album.
No, but they just used it anyways.
Yeah. So
it fit the situation. We were just riding in a train and our instruments appeared, so we played.
We played them, yeah. We just played them.
Nobody wants to hear us do Liverpudlian accents. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Right.
Nou, schijnen nou slecht gewoon. Maar het zelf nog eens niet feit. Maar snes gaan heel de burvel hoe serieus nou weer doen.
Deel. Deel.
We was de numbers neer aan en die eerste niet uit zo.
The show's
different.
What? Right?
So yeah, just easy to the one.
Maar dan zei hij, ja, use wel weer
feelers that. Ai.
Maar is dit er? Nou, de wiener was nog een nevier. Zo, snor dat die deel zit in there. Even but what I get is not so that was no better ahead.
Maar bij een vaste there was an Oscar schelp like an it. Zit in de gaan nou pad. Is er een Oscar filler? Together now we can still why.
Right.
That's it on ya.
Deel weer het is not so must be with there was so she has even been
Sian gathering the fuck off nerd back go hand exit the good for pursuit.
You're no shield for serm. What?
Heard all shit in it.
Is that way?
That's well that mass because I remember that was it down said draw. Can't these got up now on her circle it and it fell be on now sure but knocks us today. And still no was gonna say we guess that that's we issue for no such dupes in LA for your honey native that's it over here also and silly flashing.
I do spend off of and silver for everything at ya.
Slash since it more now such fuck I just slash day
slash fast next yeah.
Sends it sleep in the bell on next year and get for the leader in the slash bell lick off it I slash bell no under circle little bit mess and then I'll is up.
I was down the one this hell I was there from every god never there was no
so I mean, not if the beer was not or we didn't have feel for it was the hell I should miss I was there it was the handle one was still sure but not last night now to us pass it there was is for head over and silver skip a little smile
my nail this there me that us better get buzz well away
hi
slash night
I need bad is next Gilly out in there observing a photo of the right slash do Gilly that's it slash here you got it Gilly be this is your mentality bending if Nolan answers of it faster they love all music enough you lost it enough this I here good now at the exit
my wild shit for that's when the you somebody in it
stirring if slash slash
Right.
He's not slutty Nick off fell on a 4 liter Nick slash
negs no negs slash jabber so on
the buyer that's it up the lost there's
that's not slutty but special massage
say it or fat
on
on
Mobile was Chris.
Your help, but
Smite mobile regular rest no needs no any shot.
here a wheeler on the shit or move a cigarette that blow from his own schmicks.
So you believe maybe?
Hi.
Milk has guy.
Say, brother, the lab, but cars to us is ignored, and they go look, mirrors, the face, we go, hey.
This is loving up with the wheeler for the sake of our labor master. My other flight very almost fast to get your feel above our dish.
Sure, feel, hey,
The channel has made way to do narrow feed the a whale spinning my old mouth.
heavy snow ending mouth. Their old mouth. Gather on who's there because he can get our rope, so they, hey. Oh, so that was like a old mouth.
Says in the discussion on with is real no anything like
sure they're up to that.
Let's but it'll be galvat and didn't say
Honey, I own in the share was merchant filler by our own cigarette honey yo. I
the partners looking at sky smell like a sour here through it sealer for the body but the must does play the rest I didn't imagine it. Killer side off and like going to be one zero.
I
or video or the native either up her we in that sorry investors get together for that her with what's that investors get sniffed about you know together in the mobile or the retail who was like
snap her old folks that gallanty spell from fit it all what I had not better bro shield is still a rig out in it
yep that's that galera will be missing out so
I
money's there if I get going now Galish now was in this nothing a really we through this down there from the other than so galera her parking it agrees that let's see here so alright I together
I need your better word Alfred Nick skill I guess they'll feed me
out of the way.
I need the lost car Nick up the aerial and I need because the see their hug fast sealer is the lot.
No we
slutty peeler Velosa Galas server left and the show was server got elves in it second by elves is mine they got a little bit Girls do a slotted up day glistening the blue was the fire now the next hi my body with the other smoking it secret time did it of my healer sich gelben echt so in fast best nach ja that was a size give mistake in the longer for second navy the girls was serious fast best nach ja and the fast mix so bit that give this are there workmans of the yeah those I get in I guys oh innocent lawyer now get the but I can ask no one still sitting I in Gillier this is my that's doing it kind of Gillier Gillier next last it goes over reset Gillier next last you're with that's I would know ask Gillier look at I me fun Gills mobile best not Gillier with the I say all right that Gillier Volver but no server Gillier if hello Girl skate that the line of night and hours. One Gil said that was so good. Small bite, best knock surfing than a wheel up there. As Lord Phoenix in the by the best knock Phoenix, follow. He get beater, break out zero, a reback, Gil in the eye. Yes, zero passengers, the bite, best knock at the air, can you make it? Small bite, best knock got with her one, you say that best knock got her neck made so that I like a fact slow deep in the new under. Kelly has a big work bear, which has a Billman never even see Gillen actually he's does a pass it. That's it. I get my sight. Get my sight. Yeah, get my slowly, but no one is away. I about for a wood. We got fuck out about Monday. Gilly was that Gilly or I use Dick's night. Geller, I do it. Listen. Hi. Stare, guess Nina's how go. Nina's how lost this nether per going next to that. Not slutty digger than I rock. Must have one arrow. Wow. He'd get rid of arrow E. Then it'll gather that one. Her nice on his nearly fit all that. Sailing it. Say, fire good enough. Honey, that. Dus dit wel de Nederlands. Nee, dat is heel zijn de juist. Nee, zo aan als een hele felle heel kan.
Wow.
Dus dit zo is gezegd.
Also, you referee no.
Nou, verps dan de snaas. Ik heb maar dit scary. Look like elder. Je moet ik vast. Ai.
Is wie man door no.
Say.
Sturdy heathery finances. Finax zone.
Ai.
Hey, winning loss. That's skills. Ai.
Hoog, kijk nou.
Let's see the box are all one man name.
Hi.
Irving also.
Is er weer voor mij? Ai.
He was at such drama. He could win. Much girls nice. They was nice and
Hoog.
nah, the girls that see. Bonus see red girls sing it for their time. Here's this numbers to near red. Neat girls in that elf the wa.
Hoog, wat?
Her 5 minutes girls discussion. You can know we. The person you girl now. Slowage nasty. Some buzzly blowers here. I'm sure safe so well. And so leave.
There's time. You're right. You're right.
Yep. The nicer's time you're in that.
I know.
Wasting your time. You're
Time on the night.
My.
Ja, så det fast dealers. Hej.
Even when you die, Burma's bar over this. There's muzzle bar the big bar.
No, we're resting.
And I.
Mobile out what say give me lesson exercise.
Even let's move out what. He'll move out and muzzle behavior.
Slowly fear about shit.
Say got a. I did.
Yes, then but I already did it say.
Fatty server Kelly will tell all the girls that you've been the Eric say,
Sir, I was a business assistant.
Sir, all when they had about it. Then I also know what that's in a girl winner, so I know I'm a bit. That's second audition silly goes. Oh, now, dear symbol was that. Her, the father, all one may out did or yeah, we're doing it. And I fully here's no empty. So that's in there, friend, but do it because I know God did that up.
Perhaps the pay.
Say, you know. Galush, that's it. Says it. As you read or yeah. Speaking of that,
Well, better than I do. And I built their handles, sir, back me dressed over.
Even Galder and
Yeah.
well, by the way, my crash nice is the list, yes. I'm not even by the list. I mean, upset one day. I used to say,
I know, still speaking, I guess, niece, or I was no only there though.
What's niece, we spoke with love, what's it, love
I
you?
was doing it, I was doing it. Put it out, I
remember that.
pushed and ate it, and I was
Oh, the wine and it's all it. The discovery neither come off boat.
Well, sit in it, such Dave, now you know, I didn't say ill or what.
Sash gave none of my hair.
Well, I finished it.
He's on like the I Rose dear symbols time. God, or no, you're up. So, waking if I'm asking all of the fear.
Can be you. That values identified by Stas, the village sheriff grips our elks in it. Such Dave, not at a high even with Val, Nick off Canada, because in your vessel, he's well lit up.
That's just him.
Hammer from nowhere, much the rebag it, aye.
It's just him.
But I rebast on the
So,
near vessel, like so, with the because I was a rust that. Absolutely, but my, my,
absolutely be. Well, Basley, there be free Bazidoma. Why is your good? Sid.
Nah, is here. Sidler one. Do you not an ethnic so you know when of you're behind the step.
Right?
We're sounds this. So, girl, will there be searching if I know the girls and this the wheels in it.
Right?
All the musculars now feeling or going to fast and just have to see it. Honey. Scott knows it as the if this find that rumps. Girls, he can't load out all that.
When?
I'm here to little bit seeing if not so down.
It must be shit if I had gone to make this you. That mustn't give back. For that's an hill my F said the balance or bit. But it's your sir asking those the house, but I know.
And that's even beer back girls that the other light.
Yeah. Let's say that you do so be bad. Their offices and that's getting in when you're busy. that they so sitting at you.
He don't bestämma mig.
This year, Miller.
Ja, för det money. Den också.
Right, we can get them.
Ja, the other was the none. Hi.
I'm going to see that for if we can get so I find you sure fine. Send she have it on straight over the one. Yeah, I know, because it's so good as they're killing it. But it's news to how when I find you steal it, because it my blood's if in the week.
Sight.
You know, it's if that's my didn't know exact guy, but that one you see there's
a.
The fuck, that's it. As if next time, it's certainly. Stump. Say, guy, go out, because any else get it. And then if I get into the outfellers, that get her was a next guy. He'll has it.
Nice, that's the
So, Nay, that's now I'll give the law. Swedish news by her girls miss it. For near the didn't get that low way.
You'll look at he felt skills like that line as it did. Man
has guy.
Stand him next silent dealer. Gelsen on the finger bit on the zero reason. Avisen gave me out one of the execute no fun or finish goes up. And I necessary get all little evil master how to help.
Say, Garish, Gelsen, I don't know, I'm 8 minutes. There's near Sloppy, but no one of my cousins fascinated me. Say, Geller one. Math, the one number 8 minutes. Her smart mud imagine it said was never to get menu mouse growing with math to the. Stoider if you not gonna give me no much skill say was the officer is there a wap see the way out. Yeah, well was on the
special mirror just the other little
Hill has
girls mirrors you don't know girls me man already so can all sack the shit oh footies in the gallery and the seniors you do how foot out doesn't it
right
helps it I must do shana what girls I read the life now some me because leaf and it give the girls silly because an interview
mud where I say that looks like those last days here girls so that isn't that worth no girls is this idea as there should be next year with them there also be with Siva and accidents it looks so logic and the Laromi or the traffic where you run in the fire right over the Laromi or the no who was in this fascinating my server Nick Gels any server you were no beer to like you fit out because he was name
I
say yellow killers is I that there he was enough to still
that's
was he there's the second one. He's got no him, but that's no down what not does he?
I'll leave singing or even a Rushman said this is silly.
No one say it is short and not that. This nigga. Yeah, worse than even a killer running with the biscuit for an aki. Say, no, he's a or can lift Mr. No longer for circuit. It now fail.
Yes, and the girl has it. It's not for you. Because you're really upsetting it. And I earn it. Whoops. Face, yeah, you got to mouse. Got to
how we act.
Yeah, umbrella, seriously. Shall we gilly?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's not good. Wow. Yeah, good.
Server, he'll try so and gets him out open in that world. Never heard the server. Was if me the server, you're on server with his name others. Said I'm in hospitals on the side. Snip I doesn't name other snip I hit her wrong. I be the next know you will. Honey, if I have given the no wonder hello.
They're wolf. I guess they're I guess the master any message. Here you.
I never serving the server in it. Here was name others. Now, for necessity is out of marginal life of the native girl.
Yeah.
Marginal life is what now for necessity. I give it thick up. Rest it. He'll accept it. I give it then that. Marginal life is the servant is would as the eerie thick as that. Screw servant you laugh as merchant. I thought my must be did that. Then I server master did the what? Hey.
Eller in the shy Florida, and I get a search car, but the thousand there, and the starts it.
Säkert där ska man inte den snurra block då så för där was
Ja.
för där var snurra block då så men
Men moves it.
I
Killer.
för där var she vid den Earl skaten måste det den mer från det var så ja. Så vad var det så? Phillips to niche decide now snitty around almost that I remember but no good what I had
Killer.
Where is my block of button is if I hail shred at that's now not eat a massa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even shower but I had up surface so I give him so we're fighting that.
I.
Yeah, the question does that was it you Nello
Serious and afraid so I'm in it. So now I'm like, I thought we'd have either mountain. But
honey. I'm shocked. But power boop why? But syndrome
sight.
My friend that I had this never out 3 winning, but the block we did other not or then I me start worrying then no the house in this show and all like else it
That's not because it's our snailer was it bitter of me. Mouse your bed up across the was full.
One and I don't be suspect there you know Alex I'm being about color in the mother from get the visit off but I'm the American and he said that you're so that's up I bit the dream was that did he have no any color we snap because of our next time I don't know but the best no walk out of the bush you know right
her station there let's just never go this is better than there 5 years still so I breathe one ox the gun the walk out burst now you need to cross meadow with guys going to now those net again gone man
one
never you
and he's
go feel a real let's just know because the last scale but stan so need
side there first of all business choke give it a lot side and I
it's shuffle really wristed step I know that be do it roll Eddie, there's been a chase and this is the wee girl.
Yeah, come on.
No, snatching the doing it, finish her from it. I am sure.
Side, get the
girl. Litter of Ningish beeps as new no.
Side.
Litter of it, see out, then as you skin it, oh, honey, yours. I dare else the snares my fathership.
They're going to get out, sailors about.
Say it over sit on. Yeah. Was you rather it nurse as if the illness and that's the life surgery the wee beam that is and the weakness, yeah. With better of name it again. See air fed machine fed little shy. Say, got a shake a deal or dill. No. Oh, yep. The shank get fosteries. No, we on. Healer stand we do. Master of it. Sued about. Orken aan wel aan de wedstrijd. Eerst die first. Right over the roof. Get sure.
Yeah.
Als je not get a girl, sleep, no nigger. Saying it's certain is the what. They schreef it, you'll see about. Yeah, you can make it.
Say.
National field opposite, next ad net.
Say.
Later of it, no nug stacks, or they got on.
I see it like we bit. Brother Nary, I see it. Ralph it was server nibus. He'd omnibus. If I hasn't get their feet in the lost it.
It cost it our season is a story. You agree in that on it. Was.
But then so there was last month venture of server. We the soldier. Ned the Abba as a book. The is not. My friend named Abba agreed. You know that. But this Nick I book was
that don't argue in that. Oh,
my that's right. And the banger versus this is the women in the show. Gamba book bed the nose. Don't must have been on the
bed in the what?
My and I said the book beer means not it was.
Yeah.
Book bed the note. My that's right. They do. See, where you shadows. But I love the hero. Sir Alvados. But if you post in your fire was it? Send.
Hi. Hey,
and I open a show of us up. That's what's right.
That's your very was on your lobber was it.
Hi.
He'll see it. The master she me thought that son I said and I
but that's the reason there for him because it was mentioned or her ring it get effect on the draw former lobby McGarry beers had the side name.
That's after shut out that.
Once that's him all right. One did that in one.
The bastard said Nee, hang on. Oh, gallery in de pak wel in het.
Ja, ik ben...
Fijn, Bob. Gel gels de makers met gels zilver.
Fijn.
Nee, beneden, ja, dat is nou bezig game. Dus naar 4.016 of dat. Hij.
Hij, nou, maar dit is nou minder. Hij, dat loopt neer, bij me niet meer. Hier, must niet spesningers die slaaf aan de memory. En dan, dat hem daar, dat ook, voor ons must hij, dat, remember we dat, hello.
Be next dillery. Slow valve.
Right.
Ja, meers double life van meers naring. Slow valve meers doe je finish name. Ja, maar
remember that's hair blobby new. Is not go been let's say the one.
If I hurry there or some meers that don't remember it.
I got this near skid about. No fully rested. So I was near skid taking its light over that. Nish fascinated very other than it out about. Because now meers no out meers the thing over the so near bump is that keep no by that's non the muff of the life and meers so near bump even mother let's get so out and that be off an access so out because the was I do has gay
no Alex we also didn't have one but if I was I get the mean ever Gelston and back we didn't be soft and or worse than what Gelston back we be sick of oh, I still had the back Geldy fan, and I guess I gallery shit. You
now, by the name is Tenet one. Damn, even because
life of the scam out, get ill.
Feel soft, or sailor with dress and side. Loromir, so be the bath and together, rider, the gallery, there. Loromir, the father, I'm afraid the Caesar's never naked. There's no it lost my for the deal. Galloist, and fang it for there's dressing it, yeah. Snap. Heard Ethan and specing is so. Yeah, no, because it was on who hired it, but it's to draw it, Nickeron him some I was. Yeah, they fell him, by the side, got on the drawing it, that it's how it gets this out of me, and that over remember what are Ethan and specing else, and the specing is Beatles off you severe, that was like it. Ellie, freely, but physics goes away. English now, we just need to dick us and I get you another look. First time I got it, we're in there, gosh, back to it, but I got his up on it. First time I got my label of Beatles stuff in it, yeah. Then I was on away.
I said they were flying out sure was stuff there get reminded we was eating on but then they different hurts that
see number the van we went there on that slowly but there's over Phil.
Hi. Or see them in like nillivers. Oh I hang over this sketch a healer as a build that thought was he'll guys get
her very full in the conversation. Hi, they do shit.
Laura Wall the craft minute I had that you're already semi for surfloaty saying that Laura Wall hung his graph. He'll see what's this and that's near throw Laura and our street. Oh, Laura Wall craft me so. Hi. Girl, how many sweet was laying in? Hi. Oh, yeah.
Nan embroidered them locking myself no bacon.
Yeah, did have been a nail.
Nan embroidered does he don't mean was didn't get outside with guys guy.
Oh, Steve him in the river, but you'll see that I'll see on to be
Neil good.
Hi.
Has
medium because they are off. Money is there's not all about the same.
Maybe I over.
He now I can't discuss don't name scrap we don't have money spell it that's you know any but the so that's not now let me see this that's so weird
and the sure of your street fan and sure of side was like it's like money for us with up we just put out in this never and I message
I said it
was but there this night yeah no we just put out in this no develop wasn't it money is fell off now gosh don't say wasn't it half an hour gumps like cousin and I blew as we
oh
yeah and they draw and is now side with with working if names game British guy as do
now I can get next to you say if I said in the Helen's the find it so fan our planet nearly fine the past say and I did remember never find the sauce that so sketch on deal scatter or they use
say guy
life of the city floor was the past combo
Master, you want if you could be women that get sons with any message.
That's the back where I was looking at him. I said, he'll fear of him, and that's the end of that thing. I'll remember. That's the back where I was looking at him. You see, that was. And sure of my face, yeah, you asked if the week I feel it. You can now, Alex, the one.
No, I.
He was a little slumber, this night in a saucer ear of Nigel.
Yeah.
Say, yeah, do we us. Serve him in Almas, other snow, we in an Almas, I know you, sir. We will sure, he asked in the serve no mouse, do a silly, yeah, so skeleton that smash little slump on an Alexi, sneak show.
Yeah, say.
Saps kind of another check lot, you know, me, those net and chaser, making elbow bug, and you saw within our knee. Says, and this is my rugby, guys.
And the shame seemingly if you haven't a wee. I'm
not so fanatic, not. And that are so run the silk gals, you know, see, that's a lot eating it. So I should anybody. Yeah, I can get off my air, must have eat it.
This side I run, which is eating a milk back, this is basic. People in the man is really.
Man, if I just think, swear,
about
man, you got for me, you can name me, you're over something, sneak by the red of. Who you now, who you look about, Gelsey. Nema došli jistě si, but nekažte si rýb, but the wagon get off from an air and that fine guest is back all have gully boom, but the nice da honey gill. Say,
yeah.
Says, gives me help with lump, nazi, second mine out.
Ready, I'll make it, yeah, what?
That's an acrobat who had the sally ran. Lock him off with the self, and he says, I would have had him now, because no one knows it's self, and let's just know what you know.
How do you move in one? What? No, are you saying? I'm not you say, make what?
Hey,
say it.
That's an acrobat, say, this one, and
say, I do it now, feel remaining ill, let's get, yeah, when this much says, do you never must, and that's a lot, and maybe shut up a second, and,
say,
yeah, then I agree, not, you know. Sie, you know, was like extra busy here, well, but in the velo way.
Stare up, hold up. Yeah, like there are see I'll stand it, and if I can message it. And I, nay, stuff, and in the there go eats, then it ends it, nay, he gets to us.
I,
and if I can mercy feel vessel, so it's out.
It lost you, sir. I lost me with Barbara Lumps, that's it. The book, yes, the pay well, then is my firm, monsieur. We'll see, guess it. I.
Sir, the off an air claw, where what no, just saying, no, I can hear him now for Palcus, and I get her with feathers in it.
Nice, get there, sir.
I can hear him now for my head up. Mouse, no. My, yeah, monsieur. That's a stupid gig, get that. Fine, yeah, it's in your honey, it's night. Snip my hand, show this. Good. They're why they're all feet standing next to night and I serves in this requirement you saw would have been as a snow what I use. No, I didn't like it. That's my thought in the calculator and was it the size it. I'll get snagging it here one is my thought, but sneeze thought in the mess of the life skits to do your other one.
My Z characters that.
We're in a circle walk at the back and it's kind of seen it over the neck. There's your school that. But Strawberry is a but then it was that's it, honey, and then I'll not get seen in the elbow. Swear in the sack, Barbara look baby, but Gallady sees back like Barton Galley sees look baby, still in BC of my him, it's nested all like him as a dead Fazo unusual skin arrow feet. Least 16 is that same other black stuff. He. Her way, best rush, down there and was still a beat met, so we give mammas, and not an bloomer sniffle or my stunning out. We're there, and then it's new show with an arch paper, wheel, and then said I about my scam milk, and it was slow, very still, and mercy some of thoughts in my hand of skin. Well, here. Mine is your little shag must not up to shit, I must say that. Wow, guess that. Here, throw Lord never, but guess this is fine. Some life in the snares here, it's no, I know, I know.
I know it's the one that I
do. Some life.
Dude, my neighbor was assisting. Laura with VS, I where I get to the 5 guys, got Laura with VS, snur with S, the Villisman exit.
I.
Laura with VS, snur with Zershi Fivum, but the Villis, my name.
Albert's and Laura Steve thought was the lower one get her number full number because it's about to scale that do it soon enough. So a lot of guys never say, Kelly, man, if I still very away now, honey, and if I just shit the lot of he do worker, I deal with silly, her house gets the one I Alex Delps on. You see, I should have broken up in this vague house. It's night. So, Laura with me, it's nation shower of it now, serial. Says again as I did this in the day, and never I gave Snazzer, but we see not any look on was. But the look at it was. There are good of yeah. Remember. And if I said one Gelser versus and then the guy be got none of it, they get excited. Yeah, what? Nash go come over in his bed, I do a host of ignition shower with those. No, either. If I said the law, right. He went in his neck, look up, no. And that it must stare secret eating it. It must was all, but see. Oh, sneaky up, nice, go here, was that ooh, nice, look I'm fine it, man. Say, it was a shoulder, was he? Nam say, we some, there's nothing. I thought Arthur Campbell burst so, man's the cuff for the red over, and I'm not down to draw on it, or the off now, got seen, or come off, five. Oh, slow bursting is off, and blow, or where she thought, law of a surf was. Oh, Gary, aye. What name it, buddy? Nigger, spot, now we get Ellie the next spot. Snow or file, brown, we should have. Fast, no, I was looking at that name, hello, no, oh, and then I was slowly been like it's not searching. No, they just didn't, I'm master brown away. Honey, I know why you would. Nights in it, hit the mother got like it's first, Mr. I had the animal first. Yeah, the animal first, Missy Summer. I well, a roaster, everyone else says they're good food, the money. He even about slowly been in it, right? It's good, right? I think it's up in the rough, but I'll be the sock this summer. Yeah, ministry when mother relied, and I was, Master of seven, this is your shooter, master. Rue was selecting this now, national absurdity, heavy man, money, I can't fat on film. So, well, mother, right, I feel us, right? So, the sequel to one back here, built that, the money, now I searched some on a specimen, Murph Motor, back, I'll build it, if we school it, holds up, Nick off there, wiggles on with the right, this, say. Later of need to get that so is the herald bush high in the subwing is never for it, though so I'd net. Fine out queen decision head. Sir will. He the one the herald real queen. Stir of need to mother got those. Say. The shell scary queen. Rain it landed. Sir will snap up scattered. Sin the shell scary queen man the sky when he say. The shell scary queen. Stir of need which so, we're gonna see how next number for that again, over for ups and that's your nail. No, yeah, nice. Say, and the sheriff in the mouth, do we decide ups and the shelves get through it, just get hands that mother regard us on us. Long as mother regard us, and we guys get our good finish. It must her mob, babes upset. Right, Bash figure for out big wheels off, but such that gets away. Well, that's you niggers. I consider the little embassy, no busy, but mother lots says block a little set with mob that my head got man ooh mother like only both got my revolvers in life my let's say yeah such the nails can have to do each number I heard I'm it word I'm on next one skim. Healers of guilt, or if not skim, the fan of eames, nesting again to that. I will all did and in the inn. I need your better way. Her solution is always the point. But the red I can't get Mr. Sap and the Billy out, so that could initiate and read the next book. I make out. Girls then is show to be not donate those, and then they be going up. Bill had that. Honey, I had the red over there. Finding where's the feather. Zachary feel, no, what I can give me a wobble. He'll has get back, so you're a wobble as long as the schnivel said this, and I'll go this another me spinner. Looking at that, kill me said they. Honey, Albubner, I wouldn't get nimmer bulk gelser. The spacks will come on now. Yeah, Nick of House net.
Say,
the surface here critical. Right, but not near, that's the only show. Mash messes that say, alright, as I feel was us near Silvy's again. That's the hero wearing a fan of ya. Nesting saw with a nice dish, even the snail scale or the lazy. Eyes and on a fast less and as he has got nothing as if an hour finished. The shivel left. On a sir, bam. That is good, sir, but yeah, heavy sponsor from the movie. Yes, slow winners. Now, Alex, the wheel guys going to left bus and not a few. I know that. I dare we cost cheaper than what Gelly died there if they could see me. Server minute up, but not Spanish news, and this new saw would have been nice D0. Her veto, do I lose 0 and this narrow give to the earl. It helps get the snip, we off the shit. Scally out, snam wasn't the shit. Stand next to it, now, Alex, don't answer not either. Eddie, but necessity name. Hurry in air not either. Smell fatness, either sort of snack skims I division almost snap. Slammer that I'm like, that's nailed up Breville.
Nailed up Breville.
That's she's here. Nail of Breville, whatever. So shit, and say drop that. My fault. Alright, let me guard again. I am rested. Even, I am on and,
why, Emery? Yes, we're here.
I am showing it on Erzaki on all that bus with 5 weeks and my thought was said, but not.
Half of meaning in a must matter of a make it bloody but not go being in their back.
Man, the whole even Romery on that Earth, my
snicker bark. Bro, and this bro, running on Ash, there's bloody business, snarling on Ash, so go do that. You want it?
There's
was so I'll get this note from the Dale bus log was bloody, but then you
fasting out to see girls' life. Girls are shining if I'm honest, they run out here.
I didn't know, isn't it? I found how they did.
Herma's knocking at Ellie Master, so he get life, so doing this searching, it's not eats no side. I think no wonder if surfaces so said the bulb Saskia ceremony, see, I use. And they are all the name of the earth, and I call Biddy. Nadio snarf so. Namder, all yes, they do. This narrow. This narrow give to that. Oh, I guess they're used to a fine or you killed daddy.
Every day.
Yeah, it's so decent as a woman.
So who has.
That's not how you know.
Yeah, get that going to turn this nickel.
Slide almost,
they do.
Gosh, nice, they didn't Herm, isn't it?
Herm, isn't it?
See if this the way thing is searching is doing it up.
What?
I
need my foot. Wow. Gas er opsnimmer på sine spesni. Så det her også da sånn det.
Where's that?
Bang him, where's the girl? Got those darts and that's it.
Oh, du give me a mouse, guy.
I guess I guess the Zedra. And do I look and see if there were Steven Thorpe? You guys got it.
Alright, well, what's up? Or service though out. Making a little roof and you're doing it. Snass gamular was like that going at muscle it's crushed her off like easy Iowa nail friends shark yeah you girls such that and I been the hello girl with say just best knock out either through some life for a long skillers there's a gal up
my
dude the last is his name my
say the bar no I need to buy that her better run life shit I damn me even matter
I
Hij maakt niet op stekker stuur bij. Hij
nou die er ziet over nou hij er al wicked left gel zegt zo en echt op zo een spes niet op een accent Sir Lord Neely moest but that's Sir Lord Neely maar nou zo een bij maas geen met afstand ook wel en immer seskus van als de er nog gel red dat Hier waar we schelling het is hier de Carwino uit zeven de sky game. Game loopt zeer snel van wel als die zeggen heel skip is niet vast niet. Got this schmut. Zijn de gas door zit me toe. Zijn de gas door providing about that one. Die gals zo ik zeg ik heel skip en al hier.
Same is that get bad that is in where I be. Heel skip en shit personality mate.
De nail in that. Heel skip is on the space and that's not in the space and I you're all work at life so like you guess now man it's
just new
fasting out to get life somewhat. Heel skip it on so and it's been special yes well
Rose slough and get shit down just there hope say gazzy boomer from real feather
all that heel skip snake get on mouth
mop you and it would get a pro in the passage and heel skip is when
hey
He's fine right over them, but Galilei Rouse, if ya, Sam and English, Sam, should be Singles, we do the way we should have that. If let's me with a fresh gear, really on the beat and the beat. Look, the
hurt,
was a lot of I.
Not running out of such, but healer, not hurting the vaccine, Nick off full of position.
Said, I remember it. If this isn't it, said they go Spain and the passage line, Gelsby, then I didn't know it was it.
Yeah, well, girls the nails, but the old Nick on the wheel. Name it on the
fun.
Yeah, seen it, though, just I had this wheeler up. Snam sick question, the sky, Gellers, seeing that he was.
Right.
The sky, don't get me, I said, the no wonder if Heroes, the glass nether there, snake eye, there was back, so just sleep to and see your horse. I can lift it, the looking at my salaries, my thought, but the camps of the sailor and I could. And I had your illness here, then this is it, but that gallows song is him, and so it. Aye.
Her meadow. Girls, and the beat up. The rest of the neck got name up, but even as even here. Aye.
That's different, I hope.
Snets from the envelope in it. Stamps it. Fast nails did that. My first shit him. For the get galley filler, I.
Honey, no, oh my god, nature, no, this cafe, even and Nash's obsession of muscle with her.
Nash's obsession. Nick also did a lot at a net and opens over and on. So, oh, Gelfa. Nish works it, find out Irvins with. We don't mess on getting that self, my nose you say be me crossrate the wire if Nick Gillery. I was get a pass out, net.
I
get a pass master cat. Oh, so out. Get a pass out. There's no so out. My life is very white, it's for the right.
Softly. Sir, yeah, rather fucking in it. Look how yellow I got oxygen. Fast, my thought that cat fingered and daily. If it was sister. Snass gam get hand sort up and roughness in your vet. So sharp here if in your vet. Sketch out here if in your vet. And I Alex no idea what. So the then I in it. And as you remark wonder seal about Saturday and I recall where I was so near VC. Five because none allows to see damage or these being man. My fun. Healer. Snass gam as a down Ma.
Say,
and if I hear guys that I wish that a lady in some office and energy from Nixon life thought. Heck, life master there, that was it. Small thought, but self by lyrics sitting if had a small thought, dude, sight and no, said us.
Now we all kind of Scott Nick, you know,
Sack docs out your skeleton, and this is sack doc, it got a shin is it, we're in it. The circle around the upside down it. Nick off. Was the details differ going to the shit up to gun the shoeless. All the rest is in the show, even is the rush. So, she's gonna lie.
She'll meal market. Right.
The show, even the salad was the rushing it helps to see about the skin this girl we surveyed eating and the mirror was as easy as that. Oh, beer observer when the real salad gets hospital see so.
Mud, the right. That's a manual. That's how the matter. Surface is actually.
Say that, and so when it. Well, I think if it's self, just now we had it. You always do stuff.
Yeah, there what?
But I just know. Fire opposite else, the kiss of the sky, up and get extra bullish, has you self named that no. So, at the finding about Zushin. Okay, up. The non-Yorks and nothing get sush at either I felt so sit up. So, yeah, it's Zush, no Sally ran itself, not for so at Gump. Yeah, was Zush.
But as well. Snem na gelder neer nas nie. Gels die show nie very one neer nas funny stage. Say gan bizarre though this one. Wrong it is nie wie das. Bang all business lives
Alvarez.
Ready was even no Eric reason it up. Hey.
Hey,
Strong it is. What's he said when you did ma. So there's no easy. Bizarre there's no name of access.
Was say necessity of the got she see value girls in the sea, but our for the neck. He's really leading bill. Gel us coffee shined. Heard Eric. My straw no under what together it's the was it.
Was I heard we see says given execution I think is that dealer be I so in right over correctly there was a lot right. Gelder friend of the chef of a sketch about Gelder away.
Hi, hail it us. Hi.
Smith Gel next girl sparks this is even after there I am known hail and mark the violet dirty fan and then it was even thought news on it
Next. Hi.
There's that I named boys of the snake.
I am boys of the snake. Yeah, right.
No, it's enough as I can know this because there's so near my employee even then my guys
they give him a game so hurry needs your Rexy though Gelsey slang I think you finish so yeah got the crowd feel okay name it on
why now
stick money up just on no wonders there
my launch show must it stops and the maze serenity what buying him
I
nas stacking there it is girls is do so cars need trying to the old buzzer here guess your man get better than Lash slowly up. Hell, but when I just need better. Yes, there isn't my flow.
Say,
Neither.
If I hear the was I
say, accident these ideas today.
Life and then I learn east to exert we drunk them all. Yeah, see it, honey. And then, well, listen, then, van our panic wolf, foster door, facil me. Foster sniff. Seal beach. Stacka. He could still out the fails or this, he'll now be the, nice. Well, if all what's this new film, Brisnick, that or master dude, fast, manager, riddle, Merle from the Sally, and he belts it at Vish, who's here willing. Who's must now weak there when it off, not sniper either, who's. Nesser, Naren Gerald Mermo for the Flassum, his access on the side, I'm going to pass the wheel as goes on my Hirschleaf. It half at the Ilkasir. Snake Nishal would have been now. Say, my soul, nice goose, the stand, my name, was. Say, I said, Shan Ape side before Chris Halka, say, I'll do some life, so. Stamby there.
Message number rain the pop much did servers this little first now big of a
yeah
crop and then airing up in the valley about me during the
sit at the number
and said which little fee servers do slot I was a little bit right
slot slow down my thought
the song name this is no and said so was this head net down What that Matthew Merks is even down Zedra. No, we're man. So I could be when bloody been the low Merks and Matthew those. Oh, Matthew server near you. Guess no, so. Guess it's doing it. I guess on my favorite women. They'll lock it. Matthew server says we lift at the Merks looking at it. Lift at the Matthew Wolf says. Math lo Merks is like none of the and is Math lo Merks the way the next even by thought.
Yes, so I need a minute of them get muscle eats to sign it and you saw what it is now. Oh, there when others smells I see. No backer than this one we had go that don't call for slowly but the space is name.
Name must say.
Sketch name, the stalls are and this doing it. Okay, Phoenix and all was a stoop near the down slowly been it. Oh, that's who the pressure off us is you. Okay, Phoenix and all those salts are stoop actually messy. Stephen Friesland serve the mass be was a siege with me wet lights saying of our staff and on nation shall would be not by us. Sir correcting emissary that small thought or favor Nelson all give him safe as it's only found to keep back. I be
so even the nation and everything and then
email
well so be all okay girl any the snickers and then we were out down there that used to have right sound is the watch now with me I oh be the life see it still back get been ironing in a rope be bath they were even that
but I'm get up first thing our door 50 weeks to see that's my first
sure I so we went with that now the wheel of our we're ever website.
This is about you. Let's be looking at any mid vanisher of the bus lost it up in the share of the mask over it. Mars no lack was last in it. Here, one getter of near areas. Here, a wet machine if I did vanisher of neath of be scratched in it and a vanisher of neath of Stevie must there. Says the analysis in my hair street that says Ellie, Renan, and I Alex that why we get feels scratched. It's not go like a sahil gasabi. Gals and it's new saw would have been nice. Then after your own get the sheet, feel better off you'll feel the sheet that's it. And after yeah, you remember.
My foundation Murph Black or the slow sniff winter okay. Right.
So in the nose
the rocks in the sky window. Right, yeah, right.
Rocks here, right? That's it. Martin life is eating assistant. Martin life positioning it on.
My finger name look out. This is no what.
I need her better where you don't nice then after it. Gills, then after the dealer gills.
Yeah, I can't.
Sfield was still then after Gill, yeah, I used. The chef for rope name for the shares and a girl, and as I remember, the marking it like a wheel chef, so we're Steve is like Hiller and as near Chicago field boobs nearby. Yellow good nick off, sit. And him, and
this
him, lost news.
Neither weather. And I said, well, no. About shitter be
small thought. About shitter be the hazard this now.
Right.
My for the girl mayor thought and then here, so there's Sheila and the act of our knee, up shitter, I said, it's shall we not use it. And that's said, I of our vein in the side, because the sour the little up, nah, slowly, us. Steel shitter, but, she small thought, ma. Next that I
must was no piece of the with the rest of it. I though did rest it. I
gave you the number from like a cigar wits. There are stance or if you get the man they give it the ilk silly regal yeah was yeah.
Hey.
Water's not number from your macro slowly, but ilk silly net ma.
Was
say.
Water's not gonna net that you water's not gonna these you screw when it was all on the else but Water's not going to start it was.
Say.
The server of the next year, it's in the marginal. But this gives a deal can it a bill shot in his head. And it's
Aye.
I'm over. There's the water's not going to nail shot and zero. Then.
Wow.
Water's not going to net. A little bit.
He's really. Your father sitting up, sitting out. It's just, that's yeah. Aye.
Agree. Right?
Zero snake or yiller and it Sir, carrot shitter vethod or some left up. Not excellent. I
he been over with I fit over in the shake up skate outfit because when I thought it was
I say
girls no longer for fighter because if I'm imagining it see first time series fussy but names away he goes me and then I don't know now for the the market south getting bad in it upsides because slowly been those other practice Steve fast got Steve we got the neck but number so down the drama was but in it don't win the reading in the sea but didn't there see even thought that I was
yeah
and I see talk about wow
see the element listening out from arrow make you busy spots so they'll hours yeah
I wait.
Illustrate easy, you know, we've seen I had it, yeah.
See the elements all enough.
Life messes there, now we are slow. Say.
Det var så bäst att se det. Life messes there, and den sidor I was
Mr. Robertson. Faster, still, så det
yes, det säger det jag kan om det där säkert hör det så det där du har det där redan så nej
vi never does not be yes sir I
stick up on the sludge did
Hiller
I get the thing for it but just did the in your there was no one that thing or he mastered or had my nothing in your sir as there if did there
wow see nice if you're in a show this scandal here is the sign that they believe it looking at the yeah see nice night soft my fist arm so I'm going to have to see that the guard scale either no wonder scam nice to such a meal no we're my little bar and my if the service now actually he goes away the same we did I don't again I would need sir was it loud no if I soon here so because the out he's the name because I was slid out best not up to the south just how no for the one shows this all and helps get if in our next no it's just I
did that
show well was slid out best not up in the spot the else on it we seen the man did that yeah you know that was not sleep
right
no I know it's the wire gefedery he never actually shiz skave he those go out out Garrett scam nice and no under circle I lila roosting it silver and yeah get it I guess we should fix them with it yeah see it'll be no way going but and if I don't with the 30th nailer boss 30th night that's who'll be some mercies low
right
I'll be being that's but the go out the scam nice he keep now nice and but Gil Bummer from life and get a reef and it's some say he been this is games and I went up so I be I guess here guess that be a shot
wow got service in a world don't be the other pastor one in there get it the next day
so my basics there in a nice fan
do we women there mate scam out Dean doesn't he says the gilly
look we see and it gets nice to stand girls is no what for standing fine who they scam out not the bars and the sheriff for being my nine but then him the like you and Valfeeder if not my life scam out the Lord the gilly fat gal whistle she's there he's there now it's their max scam out he's just skill that has this no piece of muscle get that gal and now that's I finds it and that's so I'm let's see here and then that's easy or let's just Nemas says our rant guard and Nemas Zinus Darl and Nemas Mucker and the Layla was Nishim and the Science of it again. This name so Dilgasi Edushmliff Stam or Starless Life Scam out Edushipple 9 the shop nipsing life your method sir they got over from life no longer circling of the style scam out then I must say I'll hut stick gals in life at that
say
life and that those man one shoes it's Gilla this man is correct 2 years there with all
side or right be right yes
so
then
the Scarradine and those opposite us go get Luke but the second there opening is there that looks like stirrups those lots that is now zero said yeah we in Ilkasib life and 2 years there about fall on it stirrup about the ropes about was doing it out let him and I remember says if you let him in this then actually sir they just looked up some large no or that's their own Val feel as if this was a alligator Val fuck I love it opposite stand damn so then we are is such that yeah one of that said no such that
vet kan verstaken met jou ja
the shark and the bush kind of yeah such this bit got for soccer on BBC or running slow down don't I do so any others different her hand opening the vessel from the vessel your shark gets to your scaffold look at but I'll let my spurs if it all was that my small if no wonder for many and this leaf filler the earlier apps my her mouth of an accident I use
yeah
her stiefel base there for the girl when the girl's nest on the shaders in it Style review. That's 30%. So you just smooth. Who's did our silly you'll get it step now and then I'll feel it or signs will never find I'm gonna give the and I'm gonna give him the fucking stack girl be and he's keep sash the life it he'll see it life in it sash simple the gazoo so that's silly so fast call back for the visit most the night now well or reserves he's an assistant going to their friend Nizzler with it off your and interface to the book no shows just in my last and yours Sealer zoe. Staal with an all week and all my zoe. Zakip and a sealer do it that it's night. Snatches it. So fast copper the earth sets and it so in it. And her name Murphy little Murphy. Oh,
well, either if you're feed come at night when you're right it up the down.
Snatch and Chris not say baby there I'm guess it's just if I keep on up David such did this. You know, Sal more for the LGC bus. I
Fast really long. Ninguém cramos aqui vai roubar desse jeito. Se lá não me estou já porque eu vou me vender ninguém ficar bem.
Se eu dar bem ao workshop. För alla så skulle jag näla mig till skissen när jag vi man and I was surface on snäll under circus most nail burvodium and scott nail burvodium the schwessen geld das nie bei.
Men jag vet
Hi singer. Nu dat is best er han er listen to the gear feels is available gear this is near your steam so neskar geld maar al de hem zijn is nail in Balfour no your films de boek was ek op such deal gesehen dat de bees biners en level seskus on the stuff so we get see en of nie seal my earlier Phelps is it so we need him my snell met der remember ranking I'm into Phelps and our thinking it but van our nation you saw would be no then is that about us then it my her shiny second galil you see it in it life and all of the deal to more no like me mouth gals but he's got you that more no like is life with them into that night my force is there with the rest doesn't server and I get a battle roll and if I said and mouse in the work get us in the sky server real get even Nick mouse they dice that just as if yeah, Zara snips it but snack is a stupid sure from the whole virus. Now, son, sure from the mouth, so we say, life, and this here some snell on you know, sealer, and I should say, but even and then if I have one, the lady super in him, but that's so, fun our finish got,
I need a one. Well, I'm going to be the next zero. Those are in the shocking hello.
I believe in the beat and I little kisses the wall.
No.
And out twist and
out. Low kisses
and out diagram and out just her there really instead of your brother you now but it has to be mouse there's trying her elf and I made a glitch there was the snatch
right
mouse and her elf and I gave out so that I deal her brought out so doing in her elf and other smudge to fit a fit man get the three
yeah without us like guess doing that ni meaning it by saying no feels like flights and I know good brothers never in last year
you live say
so that could bring you to this other no like about he was like just gallery you into the
no
ni mean when you're you into this it was
and you know the life the you back now we're very good
yeah
me I'm gonna start from this is use
yeah I'm not looking at this that ends it right what's that's all game the review with the Balfour they was see the marker from Mexico stakes marker sellers was I get the market it was lost it look be mark stakes somewhere for who's being it yeah, the thousands and a few microprocessors slowly, but they was Snady Mixer Bro, the Max, Tex, Sarah, even the Eruser, I like others with that. Same,
and the draw, Gobnine, McCall organization.
Very low people are Gobnine, McKenzie, or the was my advantage is Elvania, or the Bill Sam,
right.
Well, has the mobile there, glass here.
Oh, snare. Well, nay, get there.
And I feel her system as it. I did. sitting enough, sit on sit light up at so much of I.
Hello, tonight, I'll see the law with the. I'm on base right now, when out the server locking us in the, guy.
Sir, we'll get Amber, so
sir, what's this?
Exit on. What lots of skip both laws with my see women acting off the mission. Footsters are so here on the next in it. Earlier, I mixed up what this parent was large sellers the right book.
Yeah, and see it, girl, husty. Hi.
See, free tax, I guess these tax it.
Unless they're busy, that double become not ill with my suit, there's fat if no one gets it. And the bulfs is gone, eh?
Hillishness, hey.
The bulf, Murphy and me. Oh, that's not so good.
Hey.
Name it on the heroes that because name are not us and it's muscles. Oh, how?
Jan see a dog make us. Jan see a dog that sounds of say it's in the list of make. Jan look over the payment. Yeah, look over the boss do it no that's only was. My airs that
on I do other feet charge that.
Yeah, the way we written in a marvelous stroke in that. My all of that's my desk for next to her heart's on your back. Marv me.
Yes.
And the dress and the drop. Oh, that's my fin. Was hanging like for allowing it area. Let's see, learning this captain idea logic. In my feels,
an iron there, but you guess that's yeah.
Yes, and this is the world fix and biology and sealers in the air fix and was terminated life. So we've but
smash the animals. That's it. Hi.
Neil grabs the hot killer fix at the window. No boss, and I embroidered the first was hearing it up one.
You know, fellas. Hi.
Mark, it's in nice shitter. Some of this. No, it's no, it's Mark, is that. Sen on the embroidery did it to what? Second say you knew what we pushed, was doesn't it? He'll see it. Was Neil, I for Neil, this next out loud.
Name Neil.
The embroidery engineer says he did this, but I became it. This question, give us a second life for the sheep production year. Sir, great. I didn't know so out.
Heck, what?
TV sure out in this shitter busy. Shitter because they wear it off and they're come off by death. Oh, my dear flowers. My fireworks at the gallery was certain need upper than do that. But never there lift. Scary up to me because of my was like Zaki Zush slowly, but her down here so my you know, if I can't go to the next Valerie go. Nesam if need fire suggestions. Rosalie, but that's a dealer. We'll get him. Who's now when I down here said that. Sval's lady, but my one scafiam, it. So you did him near everything else to skin get my but all as you yes, so people are how you did this in wood or be as even I give him, but was I
Sen.
I would.
I should get the fire.
I got it. Nedigal captains are lesser.
You're lesser. Kill
Snood the we hit the keeper sellers. There's those did that. See how that game again. Zero mister. My first carriage did exit. Whoosh. Just again the west side. My gallery in a nice troop. My flights and nights and get machine in a red lock my for shady me. Fatser sellers the rare carriage to the near. He thus. Snaffy the marker was slowly, but slowly, but the balance 80 or what sales get it. 8 days and wish them left share. Fast how long do you them left share? Then he's a game out, yeah. Some life here, math law, they're not the man over there and nipped it.
I'm like for those little sailing Hirsch.
Herval was out that orange that one eye.
Nissel worth get life, it, ma.
Low back line.
Machine, I'm under exhaust, narrow, red, get like that, man, bazoosh.
Math of the second with me, servant Delby. For next week, got left, we can leave. The bind in our stock 300. So it's saying it that up.
Yeah, what's that dealers?
Yeah, Nurks is that one now.
Where's she?
Ja, Nurks on the time you do, it's the old wing, but I got earth in man's ocean air, so that, yeah, it was a lot of it. Saturday. Mother Douglas. Mother Fina, but damn Dirshma. Was English there was a lot of name to validate it. Tells me. Be sure. But Sir Lawton's I think finished up, but it's do. Snap, and is I need the end or not. Now, sitting it out. Listening upside skip is a life.
I
stands it. This kind of food, yeah, we know. No, we believe.
No, we mean by
here, get we name hello.
Each tonight, Lord, for serious longest. No, it's the best thing in a selfie fit in this slow hour. Wow.
It's not so deep, slowly, but so get it out. Hey,
see, it's a guy.
Now, so deep, get both on out.
Cheap, a slow hour. My, bit of work.
Was gay, that's so nicknamed, but there's no single with Gully been in it, and there's drums, yeah. That's neighbor, but really, but if it a bite.
It's not single with this year for me to get. Honey,
Miss I.
The surf slowly bum out.
The surf no single run, surf slowly booyah. Or she blow like it, no, it's doors.
It's not single ran like us.
Her by naps, I believe, snap. See, it's kissed by naps, I believe, snowing bit. Oh, reveal myself focusing at slutty, but not. I name Liddy, but yeah. Her office is not dynamic. Her self, yeah, my fear, my clock is in shit. The house on night, be so.
And I believe you're so we get mail or yeah, so what else?
Send us our we need no. Say, boom, so don't ask your no, you can what all of it. Yeah,
nah, but no.
Nah, but
I'm gonna cost you. Said I do one or not.
Slowly, but slowly, but there's one.
Dance it, draw state on. Dance it, draw. Because still sales, because all are still small. Thought the virus.
Say,
yeah, so at least you're sniss.
Roche.
Go for there's some left see though, because still, we. Her own Mrs. Gildan, so now he bears so no, we see how it's gotten a scalper so that.
Mate.
Who's the gambers from any and I'm a zilly. 6 hours snap sips seal
There's not so we will show out.
And they're rather than it again. You sips snaps are in the I
the sharp we lost to sing if they're across this. How he lives over there with his lips as
that's guys get weird at sight.
She's I a bar, no one, sir. Yes, and they were in the
sight.
See, it's how he did. We do be a minute.
I'll fetch it on it. And they show him about that. And they'll under girl on the bar from the shizips kind of say, and they'll under sir. Girls, this will be unless you have seen these in the service doing or sir, the Michael Mother, I'll service doing or sir, though.
No one, sir, don't let there be.
My thought was not much steady service do you with any
of this yellow. This is the bromide. Vinach, he'll super. So we know lots of enough from him. Somebody actually tell me, I
yellow fellow said it.
Flossing, sir. Zone circle life, circle life. Segment silent and
segment silent. Are
no one look out, no wonder for sir. No one that get left is it when you start was around out there in the
so you do as there wish to the earth. For our next night, yeah, she's off near it.
No, but not no, because that's not that. It's been a bad in it, a bro from the all that it, all that it.
Say,
I was net sim, fine, but if I so we'll and fed it was. Because I didn't find a vein, and I ever let the batch start working on the knife out.
They was getting it out,
the knife out. Oh, boy, so we can get it out.
That I believe you do not hear us. Get on this. There's not a girl.
I didn't observe. So he crossed out of the sun. So it. Oh, I had initiated for the next time. It goes off on out to the way even died, but so you handed out. And he stay out of world. Even died, but it didn't have the thing you got. Dus neem Hei.
Jag har snickalåna i servicenacken det var skrivet in of sit dus best jag ne sen mer precis ja.
Ik heb nooit op die plangen te zeggen, ik heb op die plangen hij op die plangen precies niet.
Hij zei dit
ne fast snikker ik hem nang in de hier op zijn schijgel. En ik was nee, Beatles server helps me, Beatles server gels maar dit is het hoe ik Billy fellow roar is dit bij.
Nee, ze fitting energy door all like else me sitting down not all sure it's not get on do so. Say
my neighbors the next deal sure it's not no must net and sit there house in my life do that.
Ja, my neighbors is doing my do good so.
Hey,
I mean gosh, I'm lift down sit there. Zero fiscus niet aan de last of the song also but
hey,
down sit there.
My friend and sit there house the yes. En ze locks it. As en ze draai lock. Sting arrow fiets niet
naar. Ze reserve op. En ze draait de sing het massietjes niet naar nee. En echt zien of niet nog nang is ik of je was een mooi voet dus bij skills zit ze dus wat is het is er
He's dread.
Ja, me over how you're first and of easy did I be when I can such more food in the comedy of your will. Ik had wel aan die.
Nee, dat was een shit. Dat is de guy.
Wat is al ja.
Snoop had help to sing it right.
Such did over server me bleed out. Oh, slot a bash.
Ik kan me dat fijn al hij zo wel.
En af ieder biscuits dat niet aan. En het op nieuws. Oh, slot up.
Louis Bimbo weg.
En af dat niet.
Ja, fijn al right.
Als er weer veel schijt dat is those.
Solution if there's no nee, with the server niet. Seal. Dit was.
Ja, staat.
En ik kan dat maar snel afzet. Het was best dat hij that's it. Ja.
Number 9.
Maar alleen is
dat niet helpen. Mas naar je op elke jongen. Hey.
Mas naar zeg je. Dat means in het.
Slimy vizag. Miller right. Hey.
Slimy sense in het. Right. None.
Slimy is dan as nooit said and I'm be more just in a silver even besnou. Nessil. Oh, is niet bad the one I even when it blows in your snus at the boy. No, what is hey.
You know, really slush if and does it. What's I?
Det blir sand a lot of because you det hopes like the stab in the shark sitter and silla. So it's the sill her sign is in that even in the snow where that session gets now see the right even in the snow face me on they and snow then and Murph's name on that so Al under because you down the camp that's fair enough so that's better than a year of fib.